I'll call the June 20th regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to order. Good morning, everyone in Harris Hall. Welcome here this morning. 1 week, and we do have empty chairs today. Last week there were no empty chairs. So, but today we have a great order of the agenda. Mr. Mokrzycki, any adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, we just had one announcement to make this morning. As the commissioners may be aware, on Friday, this Friday, June 23rd at 3 p.m. at the Holt Center, there will be a memorial service for Dave Hauser. I think, as everyone knows, Dave Hauser was the executive director of the Eugene Chamber of Commerce for 25 years, and an incredible servant in this community, a friend to many, and his life and legacy will be recognized and honored on Friday at 3 p.m. at the Holt Center. And in recognition of his incredible contributions to our community, we put together a proclamation to honor Dave's service to this community for so many years and the wonderful things that he's done. Commissioner Lyken mentioned a number of these things on last week. So we have that proclamation. Mr. Chair, if you would like to read that for the other commissioners, and then we'd like the commissioners to sign that. We have 2 copies of the proclamation that we'll present to Dave's family for the memorial service on Friday, and also to the chamber team at a future local government affairs committee meeting. We have a card that we've circulated and asked commissioners and others who knew Dave to sign that we'll also provide to his family. We're going to send some flowers, and then the commissioners have been generous enough to contribute make a contribution towards the charitable organization of Dave's family's choice as from your commissioner account. So just want to make a note of that, Mr. Chair, and I think you have the proclamation if you'd like to read that. And we just wanted to take a moment at the beginning of the board meeting to recognize and honor Dave and his service, and offer our condolences to his family.
Thank you, Mr. Mokrzycki. And Commissioner Lyken, through the years as both as a councilor and mayor of Springfield, and through the years with different organizations, worked very, very closely with Mr. Hauser, as most of us did. But Commissioner Lyken had a particularly close relationship. So I've excuse me, I've asked if Commissioner Lyken would read the proclamation.
Thanks a lot. I'll see if I can get through it. I can get through it fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Steve, thanks for mentioning about the life. And I mean, obviously we'd take an entire week probably to talk about Dave's contributions, not only to Eugene, but I think throughout Lane County and the state of Oregon for that matter. So the proclamation says, whereas we recognize the outstanding service to the community Dave Hauser provided during his 25 years as the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce president. Whereas Dave's dedication to advocating for regional prosperity has enhanced the quality of life for community members in Lane County. And whereas under Dave's leadership, the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce has received 15 regional and national industry honors and recognition for innovation, excellence, and leadership. And whereas his leadership has helped to revitalize downtown Eugene, expand school to work programs, enhance small business assistance, and promote international trade. And whereas Dave's efforts contributed to increases in airline service at the Eugene Airport that support both residents and local industry. And whereas Dave's vision, counsel, and friendship have always been valued by Lane County leadership and staff. Now, therefore, the Lane County Board of Commissioners, leadership, and staff wish to express sympathy and condolences to the Hauser family, including Dave's wife, Diane, and children, Kyle and Carly. We join Dave's family, friends, the Eugene Chamber of Commerce, and the Lane County community in honoring his life of service and legacy of excellence. And that's the proclamation. If I could just make one comment real quickly. So his daughter, Carly, I don't know if people realize this, but his daughter, Carly, recently married. And the wedding was actually planned for this summer, and they actually moved that date up considerably. And actually, the wedding was on a Monday, and so Dave could walk his daughter down the aisle. And so it was pretty touching, pretty incredible. And so he was able to be there to give away his wonderful daughter, and into marriage, and she married just an absolutely wonderful young man, pretty incredible. My wife serves with him, or is part of he's part of the EEA, and my wife has breakfast with him every Thursday along with about 150 other people. But that was a pretty incredible opportunity to make sure that Dave was able to do that. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. It is impossible to cover all the feelings that are going through the community right now. Any further discussion regarding the proclamation? Then without objection, I will declare the proclamation. Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. Further adjustments to the agenda, Mr. Mokrzycki.
No, we have none, Mr. Chair.
To the board?
Mr. Chair, do you want us to sign that now so it can be processed, or
Yeah, I
is it
think
ready? Or
We'll have a copy with the signature block before the end of this meeting.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mr. Larson, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Further adjustments, I see none from the board. Any adjustments to the agenda? Then we'll move along to item 2, which is a public hearing on Order and Resolution 1706-20-01 in the matter of adopting the fiscal year 16-17 supplemental budget number 4, making, reducing, and transferring appropriations. Mr. Mokrzycki, I believe you have Mr. Mosby with you this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll turn it over to John.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Farr and Commissioners. So this is the fourth and final supplemental budget for the current fiscal year, 16-17. We are required to hold a public hearing as we have one fund that's changing by more than 10%. That's the Intergovernmental Services Fund. The changes contained in this supplemental budget are mostly routine. This is the final opportunity the departments have to make changes to the budgets before the end of the fiscal year. I've highlighted a number of the changes on the agenda memo if you're interested in the details. One change I will point out is a change that requires a public hearing, which is that we're moving the copying and printing program. So this is moving from the finance division to technology services. They'll be managing the program. So it's changing funds from the Intergovernmental Services Fund to the Technology Replacement Fund. Total change for the supplemental budget is $8,110,372, and total FTE change is 2.95 FTE.
Thank you, Mr. Mosby. Any questions or comments before I open the public hearing? I see none. Then I will open the public hearing on Order/Resolution 1706-20-01. Do we have anyone signed up for the public hearing? With no one signed up, I will close the public hearing and ask, we have before us Order 1706-20-01. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, move approval of the order.
second?
Moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Williams. Discussion to the motion. I see none. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimous. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bozievich excused absent. We have now before us Order Resolution 1706-20-02 in the matter of adopting the 2017-18 budget, making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes. Ms. Mokrzycki, I believe this morning we have Ms. Moody with you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Farr, Commissioners. So bringing before you the order to adopt the budget, as you just mentioned, a few things that I would like to point out about this budget that are a little bit different than we have seen in prior years. First of all, this 17-18 budget is very deliberately structurally balanced in the general fund and road fund. And why I say deliberately is that sometimes that can occur just based on the revenue that comes into the county. But this was a very conscious effort to make sure that we are spending our recurring revenue on recurring expenses and that we aren't creating a deficit in the future years. We also are keeping all current general fund service levels stable, so there are no reductions there. And in fact, we have enhanced a little bit with the addition of a procurement officer, which you heard about during the budget committee process. That was in the proposed budget. The local option tax levy is also being held at 38 cents instead of the authorized 55 cents per thousand assessed value. The budget committee made that decision. And then also I'll point you to an attachment to the memo that has some adjustments that departments have submitted. Most of these are just things that have changed since they prepared the budget in February. They found out about a grant, they need to rebudget some money into the next year, or there's just corrections and technical adjustments. So with that, I'm open for any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Moody, for a good presentation. Questions or comments? I see none, so I'm going to highlight a couple of quotes. Deliberately, structurally balanced. I love those words because I've been around a lot of budgets that deliberately or not were not structurally balanced. And all departments are stable with the slight exception of some enhancements of services. And very specifically and very happily, the levy we're keeping at 38 cents, which is 17 cents below the approved 55 cents that the voters have twice now approved. So a great budget. We have then before us, board, our order resolution for the budget, 170620-02. This is a big moment. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of order resolution 17-06-20-02 in the matter of adopting the 2017-18 budget, making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Williams. Discussion to the motion. I see none. I've also been around budgets where there's plenty of discussion to the motion. So all good. Congratulations on a well prepared and managed budget, and with great outcome this session. Seeing no this cycle, excuse me. Seeing no discussion to the motion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of order 17-0620-02 adopting the budget, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, none. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bozievich excused absent. Ms. Moody, thank you very much. And I will mention, as we're changing seats right now, that any items that the public wishes to see are covered in detail on our agenda. If you go to Lane County's website, go to today's agenda, click View Material on the item, you can see the entire document. Item number 3 is public comment. We anticipate no public comment today. Normally we'd allow 3 minutes per comment. Anyone signed up for public comment? I see none. Then we will have no public comment today. Don't even need to use the gavel for that. Then we'll move to Commissioner's response to public comments and/or other issues or remonstrances. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a little fun thing first. So this weekend, Father's Day weekend, got to go out and play golf, Emerald Valley with my son, and a couple of friends I haven't seen, and they're his son, so a friend I haven't seen in many years, and his son. His son was down from Spokane. And while we're on the 16th hole teeing off, and who did I see on the 3rd hole, because they parallel each other, right next to me in his golf cart, none other than the avid golfer himself, Alice Cooper.
Welcome
So,
to my nightmare.
and because he was playing a show that evening, and and yes, he does have a good golf swing, and apparently I think he's been playing golf for close to 40 years now, and so he is an avid, apparently when he goes to shows, he always takes time out to find a golf course, go play golf before he has, because it kind of relaxes him, and so that was pretty fun. So on another note, that's a little somber, and it seems like they go in threes, don't they? So I just want to let folks know that Mike Kelly, who was city manager in Springfield for many years, in fact, he was city manager most of the time I was the mayor, passed away yesterday, and he had a long illness. Last I saw him was a few months back. He was struggling, but his mind was a steel trap, and unfortunately, we lost him. And again, he was made incredible contributions, not just to Springfield, but this entire region over the years, and to his wife Judy and their entire family. Just please give him, whatever, if you pray, fine, but just positive thoughts. Their way would be much appreciated. I will let the board know when I hear of an impending service, but truly one of the great ones, and going to miss him greatly. And I knew that something was up because I called him a couple weeks ago and received no answer, and unfortunately, I kind of thought this must be getting close. I didn't want to bother the family, and sure enough, occurred yesterday. So that's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Boy, what a high degree of respect I have for Mr. Kelly. Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you very much. I was lucky enough yesterday to go to the graduation at the University of Oregon, and I hadn't been to a graduation over there for a number of years. To put this into some perspective, the graduation speaker when I graduated was Tom McCall, the governor of Oregon. So it was a few years back. But I was really impressed with the ceremony and the speeches and how well it's organized. And I was lucky enough to be there to see a couple of young people graduate that I had had a chance to work with either as interns or volunteers in some capacity. So it was really fun to meet their parents and their siblings and their well-wishers. And I just think it's wonderful. You know, I think I read in the paper that there were over 5,000 degrees granted by the University of Oregon over the last calendar year. So it's a great experience to go over there, and whether you are graduating yourself or just watching it, it's really quite a spectacle, and it's really fun to watch. And I might add, open to the public and free. So it's a good, and there's a lot of actual entertainment in the you know, it's not like your ancient college graduation, I guess. It's really meant as more of a fun event for the graduates and their families. So anyway, I'm lucky that we have this great university right here in our midst.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. 5,000 graduates. I wonder if any of those are going to want to find a house in Eugene to live in. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along the same vein of housing, I had the opportunity this past week to join some folks from Peace Health for an annual breakfast. Among many topics that they covered, housing was key among that, and that people with proper housing tend to be in better physical and mental conditions. The hospital has in their plans to create a small housing unit for folks that need to be close to Peace Health Riverbend, and so there's a 22-unit building being constructed for that purpose of meeting the needs of those families who need to have a closer proximity to rapid care issues. And secondly, along the same vein, Cornerstone Housing had a luncheon later that day, and there again, the issue of housing and the good work that group is doing. But I will close with an observation that I have had since I have been on the board. Virtually every meeting that I attend, and there are many, as my fellows can to attest, I can't recall of one instance in any of those meetings where housing, affordable housing, entry-level housing, housing of all sorts, comes into the conversation at some point. And with that, I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Just two things very quickly. This last week, I attended the graduation of what is actually, I believe, the smallest high school, the smallest public high school in Lane County, which is Kalapuya High School. It's Bethel School District's alternate high school. 20 graduates, all superstars, earned about $17,000 worth of college scholarships and tuition paid, including one got a full ride to, not including, that's the in-state scholarships, one got a full ride to St. John's University out of Kalapuya High School. By and large, the kids who graduate from Kalapuya are kids who could not find a way to succeed in the regular public high school, have an alternate high school program that gives them an opportunity to succeed. Most likely, each one of these who graduated would not have had an opportunity to graduate if not for the special programs that are offered through Kalapuya High School. And it was a wonderful ceremony, and I enjoyed it a great deal. The second thing I'd like to mention is the news regarding our search for for a performance audit replacement for Shanda Miller. We did find a candidate who we offered a position to, and the candidate chose to not relocate to Eugene from the current job that this candidate occupies in Salem. So, Mr. Mokrahajski, we're going to need to go forward with rejuvenate the search for the performance auditor. Can you briefly describe the process that's being recommended?
Yes, and I don't know, Marcia, do you want to come up and talk about it as well? Marcia Edwards, our HR director, is here. She wasn't sure if she was going to be able to be here this morning, so I was prepared to walk you through this, but maybe best that Marcia share that process with you.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Well, as you know, we received 8 applications, all the folks passing the minimum qualifications, but we only there were 6 that passed the supplemental scoring, and unfortunately we had cancellations come into play. We had folks not show up on the interview day, and then the candidate that was selected opted not to accept. So what we can do, we can open the position just as soon as the commissioners would like, which would probably be as early as tomorrow, and get that going again. Talking to our recruiter, she'd like to do a little changing up the posting to make it a little more enticing for folks, and look at exactly where we're advertising. We do a large outreach to make sure that we're reaching a diverse population, but we would like to target some more specialized avenues.
Excellent. Any questions or comments? What Ms. Edwards is recommending is that we reopen the search a little bit broader, perhaps, and hitting maybe a couple of other bulletin boards that we've not hit in the past, and that Laura Vinson is prepared to begin the search as early as tomorrow. Without any objections, I don't believe we need a motion on this. Just give you the head nods to go ahead and start the search tomorrow for the new performance auditor.
We will do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then we will move along. I see no further comments and or remonstrances. Emergency business. Mr. Kyler, you have 2 items, I believe, of emergency business. And for the folks waiting in the audience, we normally don't have this much before our consent calendar and before recognition, but isn't it fun? Isn't this great stuff? Mr. Kyler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Alex Kyler here, your Intergovernmental Relations Manager. You have a packet in front of you that is of a timely nature, and that is why it is on emergency business this morning. The deadline for NACO resolutions is tomorrow. NACO is the National Association of Counties, and they do a process at each of their 2 meetings per year where the members can bring forward concepts, issues that are couched in the terms of a resolution. And those resolutions are debated by the membership and elevated ultimately to their board of directors for approval that essentially creates NACO's work plan over the year, particularly around advocacy. 2 years ago, Lane County submitted a resolution, and it was titled Proposed Resolution to Support Interagency Coordination to Assist High Utilizers. As NACO's practices, those resolutions have a shelf life, if you will, of 2 years, and so I was notified last week that this one was just about to expire. If we wanted to resubmit it, we would need to get it into their hands by tomorrow. So the packet outlines the process and the issue at hand. Essentially, what the proposed resolution does is it seeks to have NACO staff work on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. to move forward the idea if there's a way to better integrate 2 privacy laws. One is referred to as HIPAA, and the other is 42 CFR. HIPAA is the broader blanket that many people are familiar with that outline their privacy rights as patients, particularly when you get involved with the healthcare system. And so there are rules about how doctors and healthcare facilities can share information under HIPAA. The 42 CFR deals with specifically alcohol and drug addiction treatments, and 42 CFR, which stands for Code of Federal Regulations, is far, far stricter than HIPAA. And what arises is that when organizations like ours, which are trying to identify ways to assist high utilizers of public services, so for example, people who intersect with our public safety agencies and who utilize the emergency room at the emergency department at local hospitals often, which is a very common dynamic of frequent utilizers. It's very difficult for law enforcement and health professionals to share that information, particularly when you've got an individual who's protected by 42 CFR. And so this effort has been well received by NACO. Mr. Chair, I believe you carried it 2 years ago. And under this current resolution process, I think the request is that you carry it again, as you're the commissioner heading to Ohio, I believe, in July. So
Ohio in July.
That's it in a nutshell. I have not changed one word in the resolution. I do know that in the past 2 years I'd seen some testimony from NACO on Capitol Hill about this issue. So clearly the process works, and you know, these things take a lot of time, and 42 CFR in particular, like I said, is very, very complicated. So I think there's a number of issues to work through there.
Excellent. And I do believe that Commissioner Sorensen is pretty familiar with 42 CFR as well. Commissioner Sorensen.
I just want to say that the complexity of privacy laws for health records is a big, you know, issue. It certainly, on the positive side, does protect patients' privacy rights, and that is something that we are committed to. On the other hand, I think that the so-called high utilizer, what we're talking about here are people who are in the criminal justice system. Maybe they have mental challenges, they're arrested, they're put in jail, and because of privacy concerns, they can't be treated because of their records being not as accessible. And so part of what we're talking about here is making it easier for the mental health workers to work with the jail and the police in caring for people with mental health challenges. And the part of what the National Association of Counties has been doing with this issue is to try to bring it to the attention of the Congress and bring it to the attention of the administration, and the administration meaning several presidential administrations at this point. And so I think it's a good thing that NACO has individual member counties that say if this is important to you and your county, you know, you're one of the 3,000 member counties of NACO. Roughly there's 3,000 counties in the U.S. And it's not asking too much that in order for National Association of Counties and their staff to keep straight what everybody wants in any given cycle, that they're going to say these things have a shelf life. They're going to expire. So I think it was in the NACO convention in 2016 that I was involved in this. And incidentally, our staff, the Lane County Health and Human Services Department, they've been national leaders on this issue. So they're among the people that know the most about it in the country. And so, you know, I'm sure that Commissioner Farr and I have been through this before in terms of presenting this resolution. I think that it's a good idea and we ought to keep at it. And maybe we could, you know, add this to our own pile of things that you, Mr. Kyler, might work on with our congressional delegation, because certainly with the advance of Congressman Walden, who is now maybe like the number 3 Republican member in the U.S. House, and he's a congressman that represents Bend and Medford and all of Eastern Oregon. Certainly he's in the leadership now in the Republican-controlled House, but also our senators. And senators have a lot of independence. They can attach amendments and riders, and I think that we ought to think about maybe, and that's not to say that our other members of the House from Oregon couldn't be helpful, but I think that in terms of leadership or people in leadership that we're more likely to get it through Greg Walden, Representative Walden, and our senators. So I'll just add that as an additional piece to it. I think we ought to approve this resolution. I think that we're well suited to getting it passed again by NACO, so I don't think that's really the problem. The problem is what happens after that. So anyway.
And this goes along with our focus as a commission of providing immediate and appropriate service for the frequent users who are in our system, people who need the services the most and the most urgently. So we have a suggested motion before us. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to move that we resubmit the 2015 National Association of Counties resolution on privacy provisions within federal law.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Sorensen. Discussion to the motion. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So about, I think it was 2013. I'm looking at Alex to remind me of that date. So we went back to, when we went back to D.C., we actually talked about potentially looking at the Pittman-Robertson Act, which that taxes firearms within the manufacturers on the manufacturing side. In those taxes, and that was agreed upon many, many years ago, but those taxes actually go to wildlife restoration. And we brought a proposal up that what about taking just a small portion? And I mean, we were looking at a tiny portion and actually taking that tax and moving it into mental health. And I got to tell you, you might as well just walked into a brick wall. And that was Democrats, Republicans alike. I mean, we got... In fact, if we were in baseball, we would have been tagged out quarter way down to first base. That's how bad it was. And so there was no interest at all from members of Congress, whether a Democrat or Republican, to even look at that. And which I almost found it surprising, because I think that didn't that occur right after the shooting back in Connecticut at the elementary school, and yet still there wasn't an interest whatsoever. And so, believe me, we dropped that idea real quickly, and because I think we would have had better success trying to run through a brick wall than trying to get Congress to listen to us on that one. So it was pretty interesting, very eye-opening, by the way.
Thank you. I think we'll have a little bit more support on this one. Commissioner Sorensen.
I just wanted to mention something about this Pittman-Robertson Act. You know, a lot of us here in Western Oregon are pretty familiar with some of the challenges involving our national parks, like Crater Lake National Park, or our national forests, like Willamette National Forest, or the Bureau of Land Management lands that surround Eugene and Coos Bay and Roseburg and Medford. And so, having grown up in this kind of setting and also worked in Congress on these issues, I had sort of thought of federal lands being in those categories. Let me tell you, when I got back to Washington, D.C. in my 20s, I just remember this duck hunter coming in, wandering in off the street practically from, I'll say, Wisconsin or Minnesota or someplace like that, and he was lobbying on this Pittman-Robertson Act. And of course, being as well informed as I was as a legislative assistant to a United States representative, I said, "What's the Pittman-Robertson Act?" And he was just outraged that I didn't know what this was and how sacred this was. And for those of us that don't spend a lot of time on issues connected to our national wildlife refuge system, and Oregon is one of the lowest states in national wildlife refuges. Let me tell you, Montana, South Dakota, all over the upper Midwest, all over the East, all over the South. Basically, what did I just say? All over the country, there are these national wildlife refuges. And some of them are very close to cities. Madison, Wisconsin has one right in the city. So this is something that Americans that, you know, and city and county leaders are very attuned to. So when we talked about taking money away from that in order to fund something worthwhile like mental health, which I think is a great thing, but boy, holy mackerel, this is urban, rural, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. Did I mention there's two parties in Congress? Republican, Democrat, north, south, east, west. Oh my. So I think it was a good idea. I really do. Like on a practical level, on a policy level. Hey, firearms, ammunition, that's what the tax is on. Funding our national wildlife refuges. Okay, I get that. Well, how about a new need like mental health? Okay. But boy, you take away somebody's bubble gum and they're not going to be happy. So.
I experienced it too. I will remind you that one of our great national refuges, wildlife refuges, is in Oregon, is the Three Arch Rocks, which is also adjacent to a very large city, the city of Neatarts in Tillamook County.
Yeah.
Very good. Then further discussion to the motion. Then I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bozievich excused. Thank you very much. That concludes our emergency. No, one more item of emergency.
Just one more item. There was a board assignment for another NACO resolution that we'd been asked to prepare for today. There's a couple dynamics at play. One, we just really ran out of time to get something prepared. The issue was national monuments and monument reviews. If you've seen, even this last week, several media stories about it. There's been a couple court cases. We had a RG editorial. There's quite a bit going on in terms of monument reviews in the U.S. right now. And it just seemed like the issue in Oregon, because of the involvement of the ONC lands, which are unique from a national perspective, was probably not best suited for something to bring to NACO. And so I think the at least in conversations between the maker of the motion and myself, realized that maybe that was a bit premature. This one was certainly ripe, but I think procedurally you need to sort of recall that request as a board assignment.
Okay.
So that would be the second.
So that's been recalled. Okay, excellent. Commissioner Sorensen.
Well, now I know that that the new Interior Secretary, Secretary Zinke, who was a congressman from Montana and recently appointed by President Trump to be head of the entire Interior Department, that he has initiated a review, and I'll just say as a member of the loyal opposition, to shrink these national monuments that President Obama had expanded, and even President Clinton had expanded. And they want to shrink these national monuments so that more extractive activity can occur. Now, that's a broad brush, but more direct to this one. What is the status of this Cascade Siskiyou National Monument that's in southern Oregon? What's the status? It's been approved, and the Secretary is reviewing it to see if it could be modified to be more polite. The term modified, it could be smaller. Is that what's going on?
Chairman Farr, Commissioner Sorensen, that's accurate. I think he's doing a review of 23 monuments that were expanded under the administration of President Obama. And this particular one in Southern Oregon, I think, is now the focus of 3 separate lawsuits, 2 by private industry and 1 by the Association of ONC Counties. And that issue with the ONC lands is that those lands that were expanded included lands that were under management by the BLM, and that Lane County, among other counties, our share of that timber harvest would have been 15.3% as our normal. So there's an issue there that the county's watching to see how that plays out. And with these other 2 lawsuits, my understanding is that the judge in those cases ordered what I believe is termed a stay, which is sort of a pause, to allow Secretary Zinke to do his work I believe there's an end date for his work, that his work is supposed to be completed, I want to say within the next couple months, that there was a deadline for that to come back to the administration. I really don't know all the details of the next steps once that report gets completed and how that will affect the lawsuits, but that's the extent of my knowledge from reading media reports about it.
Thank you, Mr. Kyler. This is all very timely and happening right now as we sit here. It's all swirling around in D.C., so thank you very much for the update. That concludes our emergency business for the day. And
I have to officially withdraw it.
Yes.
So and as the maker, then I will officially withdraw. And I thank you for the explanation, Mr. Kyler. I think you were spot on. And on this particular monument that's in Oregon, I think it's important to note that 95% of the expansion is actually on ONC timberland, in which the 85% of that 95% is actually set aside for timber production. And so that's why the lawsuits are involved and why the ONC counties. And by the way, Jackson County did oppose, originally had opposed the expansion of that particular monument, while the cities of Ashland and Tangent actually voted to support it. And but the Jackson County commissioners were very well versed, and they made their position known and unanimously opposed it originally. But for the record, but at that point in time, it didn't matter. So I think it's timely that we do not move forward with a resolution on this. Allow the process to go. Allow the process to work, and so I'm more than happy to withdraw it.
Thank you for that. I don't believe we need a motion on that. That has been officially withdrawn. Further discussion to the withdrawal, Commissioner Sorensen.
I too agree that it'd be better to let the Interior Department, finish whatever review they're going to do. I do want to put this into kind of big picture. Okay. President Theodore Roosevelt designated the Grand Canyon, before we had a national park system, as the Grand Canyon National Monument. Over the years, presidents have used the power to create national monuments, and when President Clinton created a large number of national monuments on a big scale, there was a hue and cry, oh, this is going to be bad for the economy, this is going to be a land grab of private land. And just to put it in context, no private land is involved in this. This is the power of the president to designate federally owned lands as national monuments. And when President Clinton expanded the national monuments, to his credit, President Bush did not, President George W. Bush did not change any of those. And the administration was sued during the 8 years of President Bush's time in office, and the Bush administration defended all of the national monument decisions that had been made by President Clinton. So this marks a big change in that the previous president, President Obama, designated a lot of national monuments, and now we have not the administration defending those, but rather setting up this review process to figure out how to maybe shrink them. So I hope that they do take their time with a review, and I hope they come up with the same conclusion that the previous administrations have done, and that is that, well, this is designating land that's federally administered. It's within the power of the president to do that. And it's come to the benefit of the country to have these lands set aside as national monuments. Now, as to the impact of that on Oregon and the impact of that on the ONC, obviously we have to keep an eye on, well, what is the amount of land that's available for timber production and what amount of land is not. But I think the demographic trend is that more and more people see that as an economic benefit to have those lands set aside. And I'll bet you if you ask those northern Arizona county commissioners now, if they thought it was a good idea to have the Grand Canyon set aside as opposed to having it mined, they would say, oh, I think we're making a little bit more off of the visitors now. Well, I think the same thing's going to happen in Oregon, that people come to Oregon in part because it's beautiful here and they want these lands protected.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. That's a great history lesson. And last I heard, President Taft did not repeal the Grand Canyon Declaration, so we're in good shape there. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, real quickly, if I could.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Just real quickly on, just for the record, the ONC Association is not opposed to the monument itself. That they're on record supporting the monument. It's this latest expansion that actually, because on the ONC lands, and it has been expanded onto private timberland as well. And so that's why the court cases are involved, and which there's been somewhat of a stop on the court cases until Secretary Zinke does do his final review and then get back. But I'm just going to focus on the Cascade-Siskiyous because that's where I live, and I would agree. And when the legislature actually puts forth some sort of tax reform in place, and we can capture that income coming from the tourists who did come to Oregon, that would be fantastic. And I would look forward to that. But I don't see that happening anytime soon in Salem.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. And third time's a charm. I think we are now concluded.
We are.
Emergency business.
We are.
Thank you, Mr. Kyler. Now we get, actually, I was kidding when I said earlier that was fun, because it wasn't fun. And I know you all didn't have fun during that, but now we get to have some fun, Mr. Mokrajewski.
We do. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. We have the great privilege and honor of recognizing a number of outstanding individuals who've contributed a great deal to our organization. And I want to first invite Kayla McGill and Mo Young up here. And I'll make a few comments, and then I want to ask Mo if she has some comments to make. Mo Young, of course, is our Equity and Access Coordinator. Kayla McGill has been our student intern in Equity and Access for the better part of the last year. A student at the University of Oregon. Kayla has a major in Family and Human Services and just graduated. Congratulations from the University of Oregon.
Yesterday, I heard.
And I understand that her family is here. Your mother and father are here?
Yes, all of my parents are here.
Oh, my God. Can you just raise your hand, all the family? Yes. Welcome to Eugene, Oregon, to Lane County. And congratulations on the graduation of your daughter here. And so we wanted to just have an opportunity, Mr. Chair. First, I want to share with you, I've shared this story a few times, but as you may know, I started out as a student intern. I got my start in public service in county government as a student intern over 20 years ago. And I had doors open for me, and that led to great opportunities and experiences that have brought me to where I am today in my career. I've always been a believer that to those who much is given, much is required. And so I feel, and we as an organization feel really strongly about creating opportunities for young people. And we have a great asset here in Lane County with the University of Oregon and Lane Community College and other outstanding educational institutions to tap into. And some of this really started with bringing Kayla on board, and I want to give credit to Mo for bringing Kayla, for going through a process to recruit an intern, and bringing Kayla on board. And the wonderful work that she has done over the past many months has led us to create a broader internship program, partnering with the University of Oregon and LCC and others in the community, and to tap into the outstanding talent that we have here in this community, and to create opportunities for young people from different backgrounds and experiences and places to create and foster a passion for local government, public service, particularly in county government, to create a pipeline of talent into our organization, and to create opportunities for wonderful people to serve here. So I'll just share a few things about what Kayla has done. She's helped to really at the foundation of our Equity and Access Advisory Board. This is a new program. As we all know, just in the past year, we've launched a brand new Equity and Access Advisory Board after many years of not really having institutionalized our equity work. We've created a full-time position and hired Mo Young. And so a lot of Kayla's work has been at the foundation of lifting up this effort in our organization and in our community. creating interview questions, in the process conducting interviews for members to serve on the Equity and Access Board, selecting board members, planning and preparing for those, taking meeting notes at those early meetings. Her senior project was an Equity Lens how-to tool. So she was taking the work that she was doing here and furthering that in her educational pursuits. She was active in both the planning and development and execution of our Spring Equity Summit. I had an opportunity to go and do the welcome there, and Kayla both prepared and planned for that and presented to nearly 100 of our Lane County employees throughout the organization. She prepared handouts for the reverse vendor fairs and committee meetings that we've conducted throughout the community. She's attended partner meetings across the county, met with other interns that we've subsequently hired, I think with an air towards networking and mentoring of those folks. A few adjectives I'll share about Kayla. I found her to be hardworking, punctual, excited and passionate about local government and policy change. She's dependable and consistent, willing to step outside of her comfort zone, and excited to learn new skills and to practice those. We understand that Kayla is headed back home to the Bay Area, so we're sorry to lose her. We did what we could. What did you say?
North Bend or Coos Bay?
Right, yeah.
Another bay.
A little bit further south, as we understand. And so we're really sorry to lose her, but we imagine that her family is excited to have her back in the Bay Area. So we want to thank you for your service, Kayla. And I wanted to read, I went and grabbed in my office during one of our items here this morning, a quote that I was given when I graduated from undergrad. And I framed and have had in my office ever since, that really has always reminded me about the value of public service and what we do here in local government. And it says, "I hope my achievements in life shall be these, that I will have fought for what was right and fair, that I will have risked for that which mattered, that I will have given help to those who were in need, that I will have left the earth a better place for what I've done and who I've been." And I have every confidence that you're going to contribute great things to local communities and our society in general. We wish you all the best for a successful career, and thank you so much for your wonderful contributions. And Mo, I want to turn it over to you if you have some other comments to make.
Yeah. Good morning, commissioners. Thanks for giving us this time to talk about how wonderful Kayla is and how great it's been to have a chance to work with her for the last academic year. Like Steve said, this position that I'm in is new. And maybe a week in, I got an email from a friend of mine who said, "You need to meet this student. She needs an internship. She's special." And I said, I don't even know what my job is right now. But I did. And I'm so glad that I did. For all of those reasons that Steve just said, and I'm not going to repeat all of them, but just know that she's done all of that and more. I'm really happy that I've had a chance to work with her and be a part of her journey. I'm excited to see where she goes in the Bay Area. I'm excited to visit in the Bay Area. I'm also excited that her sister is going to go to college in Corvallis, so that means that she's, I think, going to be visiting us. So I guess...
Where's that? Corvallis. I never heard of that.
It's a tiny bit north, just a tiny bit. So I guess I wanted to end with what I hope Kayla takes away from her time here, from her time with us. And the main thing, which is like one of the things that I've been telling her this whole time, is she can do hard things. She can. And she can do them well. And so I think as long as you walk through your life and you know that you are capable and you are competent, I think you'll go far.
Sorry, microphone speaking is a little weird. I just wanted to say thank you to Mo and to Greg and Steve, and thank you, commissioners, for the time this morning. I definitely learned a lot here, and I've had a ton of fun learning. Every day was different, so that was always exciting. And everything that I've learned here, I'm just going to take away with me in my next steps. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now's the appropriate time for applause. A standing ovation, I think. Good job. Kayla, I wander by your office, Mo's office, occasionally, not as often as I'd like to, but each time I was there, it always gave me a feeling of comfort and stability that you were there helping Mo define the job. Because you were there right from, as far as I could see, right from the very beginning, when it really was an undefined position. And here, how long have you been on the job now? Is it 9 months?
About 10 months.
10 months. It's a very different office than the one that you entered. And you are largely able to take credit for it being that very different office. A very functional, very effective office. Thank you very much. Commissioners, anything? Commissioner Williams?
Well, it's exciting that your family's here as well. They obviously got it right with you, and it's very, very gratifying to see family involvement in the success of their children. And so to your family as well, congratulations on a job well done.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Sorensen.
You know, I really don't know what it's like to sit in your chair, but my daughter was interested in the welfare of children. So I can identify with these folks because she tried to get an internship when she was majoring in children and families at the U of O College of Education. And it took her quite a while to get an internship, but she got one with children and families on Willamette there at 18th and Willamette, and was able to do an internship there. She applied for a job there, and they didn't have room at the inn. There was no job. So she ended up being a checker at Market of Choice and a teller at Oregon Community Credit Union, and looked for the job openings and she'd drive out to Pendleton and she'd drive down to Grants Pass, get interviewed, didn't get the job, but after persevering, she got the job in Hillsborough. And she's now been promoted. She worked in adoptions. She worked with the abused children. She worked in the testifying in court about abuse, taking children out of homes. And now she's been named the head of the Children and Families Office in Southeast Portland. And so I think that kind of perseverance, which I see you have, and the backing you've got, I think it'll be a great career for you. And like Steve, where he got the internship and he's devoted his life to public service, and Mo, people you've worked with, it's really great to see you put that hard work together with that internship, the rigor of the education. And you know, I got a son that lives in San Francisco, so I happen to know there's an Allegiant flight to Oakland.
There is.
And it's pretty reasonable. And I'm not promoting any particular airline here, but if you could help us get that Corvallis thing turned around, that would be really great. And I know there's some OSU grads in the audience, and I love OSU. You can tell. A little bit.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. My son also lives in San Francisco, and Allegiant does work on Sundays and Thursdays. Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's obvious that Commissioner Sorensen had his Wheaties this morning or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, first of all, I think the big question I've got to ask you is this. Once a duck, always a duck? All right, there we go. So you got this. Okay, good. Actually, I'm going to have a private conversation with our county administrator, because as a longtime employer, you know, I've often talked about talent. And Steve, you and I are going to have a conversation. I thought the idea was to keep talent here. And so we're going to have a real hard, you know, nose-to-nose conversation. How'd you allow talent to leave? So anyway, I'm just kidding. First of all, congratulations, and I wish you the best. But I'm serious on that in a sense. One of the things that we talk about here a lot is making sure, because we're going through this process. We have a lot of folks here getting ready to retire and move on, and we have a real goal here to make sure that we identify talent and to keep them here working at Lane County. And whatever it is you want to do, just from here, what I've heard, and obviously Mo gives a real perspective. I expect you'll do great things, and I wish you all the best down in the Bay Area. I'm hoping one day you'll say, you know, I wouldn't mind getting out of this 4.5, 5 million people here and just coming back up to the place where I went to school and bring my talents back up here. One can wish. And but congratulations and thank you for working here at Lane County. And I think it's a great preparation for you in the future. And I wish you all the best. And to your family, I must say, wow, you. This has to be a really proud moment, and I got to tell you, with my two sons, watching them go through their successes, you beam as a parent, and there's this glow back there. I can just see it, and it's just really on fire, and I think it's fantastic. So congratulations to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lyken, and I am very pleased that you're able to take advantage of what was a unique opportunity, the founding role in what is a significant county department. So congratulations for that. Congratulations for your work. And you know, as I mentioned, my son lives in San Francisco. I know that he has to take 3 different sets of clothes every morning when he gets up in the morning and heads out because he doesn't know what the weather's going to be. I can tell you, when you come back to Lane County to live for the rest of your working career, the weather is just like this 350 days of the year. Is that right, Mr. Mokrajewski? Sure. The way I promised you that when we offered you the job too, right? So thank you very much once again, and thank you for being here and being a part of bringing Lane County what was a great addition to our future. So I'm pleased. I'm very pleased. Thank you, Mo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we'd ask everyone to stick around. We're going to do pictures after we're done with the Lane Genuity Awards. Before we jump into that, I just want to share with you, Commissioner Lyken, you're right. Blew it. Family is a tough dynamic to compete with.
It is.
I will say this. I share with the commissioners, we did hire our first, from our equity program, first intern. And I wanted to just share that with the commissioners. That really is part of the intent of that program, is to create opportunities to open doors, and ultimately where we have a match of an intern who's interested and has the ability to go for a position that we have available, that they're in a competitive position for that. So we had in our first round of student interns through the equity program, Leilani Aldani was an intern with Trillium Behavioral Health. She was recently hired as a full-time administrative assistant. She began her position on May 22nd. I will just share with you that I met with Juan Carlos Valle and Leilani in my office a little over a year ago. Juan Carlos introduced me, and at the time we were talking about needing to create this pipeline of talent, and we subsequently did that, and Leilani, as Kayla did, participated in our internship program, and that has led to success there. So really nice to see the fruits of that labor start to come to bear. So we're excited about things that are happening on that front.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have 2 different Lane Genuity recognitions that we'll do. I want to invite Aaron Rollins and Pete Zugelder. Aaron and Pete, invite them up here, and then Marcia, do you want to come up, or I don't know if Mary or others want to come up and join us at the table. So as the commissioners know, we have a Lane Genuity program that is intended to capture outstanding and innovative efficiencies and cost savings that are happening throughout the organization. We know these things have been happening. I'm not under any illusions that they're now happening on a greater frequency because of the award program, but what we're doing with this Lane Genuity program is identifying those improvements and lifting them up for the rest of the organization and the public to see. And so in this case, Aaron and Pete, Aaron is our training coordinator, Pete is our safety coordinator for Lane County. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, requires that all of our employees complete emergency action plans, training upon training upon being hired as an employee. about 1,250 employees, Lane County employees, had not received this training. So there was this big backlog of employees that had not gone through the training. And what had been done previously is Pete Zugelder had provided the training as an in-person classroom-style format. So employees would come, and this would happen on a regular basis. So it took a lot of Pete's time to do that, and then we had to bring all the employees for a chunk of time and spend in a classroom style on a regular basis to do that. The cost in the form of staff time to provide that training in the fashion far outweighed the investment in the entire online training system that we've now developed. So Pete and Aaron have worked to create this online training module to provide the missing training to those 1,250 current employees, as well as for all new hires, and make sure that they receive that emergency action training in a timely manner. As a result of that, we've eliminated approximately $155,000 in cost to provide the training for the backlog, and the cost over a 5-year period of time for this new online training is $143,000 over 5 years. So we eliminated $155,000 just for that backlog, and then you think about all the folks going forward that now, and I took this training, I can tell you, and to hear Pete Zugelder's voice throughout that online training is really just, it was very soothing, Pete. It calmed me in sometimes a stressful situation where you're thinking about emergency preparedness. You did a wonderful job of walking through in a quick, I think it probably took 20, it probably takes others 30 minutes. It only took me 45. I think actually it takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete the training. It's really easy to do. It's very thorough and thoughtful and an efficient way to conduct that. And so this single improvement has more than recouped the cost for the new training, and we anticipate significant cost savings going forward. Aaron and Pete do outstanding work on a day-to-day basis, so it's really been enjoyable to recognize them with this award for their outstanding work that they do regularly, and particularly for this emergency action plan online training that they've done. So I want to thank you, and I don't know, Marcia, if you have anything to add.
You know, I would just echo Steve's comments and say that this project was made possible because of Aaron's foresight in bringing us a learning management system, which we all know is LEAP, and because of Pete's dedication to safety and emergency preparedness. So they did really stellar work together.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You know, there are a few people in the office that I see on a regular basis, both Renee and Pete. Most mornings I see y'all. And Pete, you're up and down all day long. So it's really, you know, I contrast the way the office is today with the way it was 4 years ago when I first came to work here. And it's night and day to see the smiling faces and the general atmosphere of our front office, the way it behaves when you guys are there. It just once again makes me feel really good about working here. So thank you very much. Thanks, Marcia. Commissioners, Commissioner Sorensen.
I just really appreciate all your great work here. I know that there's a lot of people that really appreciate the trainings that are going on that people get, and I just think it's important that we keep up that good work, and it helps to have really friendly, smart people doing the work, so I just want to thank both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will also just say that I know Pete had a child that just graduated from high school. Yes. Is that right? And from South Eugene, and Aaron has a child who just graduated from the U of O. Yes. Right. Is that right? So in the spirit of graduation here, congratulations to both of you on that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Aaron and Pete.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll move on, and we have our last but not least group to recognize here from Human Resources and Technology Services. So I want to invite, is Laura Fowler here, Crystal Tuller, Lauren Blythe, Michael Laborde, David Shunk, and Jesse Hollingsworth. Is everyone here? Invite everyone up. Maybe, Marcia, you want to? Yeah.
We need more chairs.
Okay, you guys can. There you go. We have a big group here. And, Mr. Chair, this was a cross-department team And really excited about that. You know, our departments are really doing great work together to identify solutions to challenges. Again, with an eye towards streamlining processes, automating processes, as you just heard. We did that with our emergency action plan training. In this case, our benefit administration. When I started as a Lane County employee in 2014, and I think 2015 was the first year, and 2014 was the last year. So my first year here, I filled out a paper form to sign up for benefits, as all employees would do every year, and new employees, they come on a paper form, and that gets processed. And so think about the process involved with that paper-based system. Well, our talented folks acknowledged and recognized that there was a better way to do that. And so this cross-departmental team between Human Resources, Technology Services, and coordination with other county departments worked together to assemble, configure, test, and implement in 2015 our new Ben admin system. They were able to complete open enrollment online. All employees completed open enrollment online in PeopleSoft, our online system, for the first time in the fall of 2015. In 2016, this team took on the task of configuration and implementation of the event maintenance component in Ben admin. Now all of our new employees complete their benefit enrollment largely online. Human Resources is also able to quickly end benefits for departing employees through the Ben admin system. And so it really is a time savings and efficiency that's been created here. During the project, Human Resources also tested and implemented electronic file transmission to benefits vendors such as Pacific Source and Delta Dental. This ended the manual process of sending enrollments and changes to vendors via fax and email. Since the data is stored electronically, the need for paper and the time spent filing in Human Resources and Finance has been sharply reduced. The result, employee benefit processes have become less manual and nearly paperless, streamlined and more accurate, and it saves an estimated 100 hours of staff time per month. 100 hours of staff time per month saved as a result of this, which frees up time to focus on providing more services to our staff and our partner agencies. And so this really was a significant effort, a lot of behind the scenes work that oftentimes doesn't get recognized that went into creating this efficiency. And I want to thank the entire team for the wonderful work that they've done. We're able to provide certificates to all these employees previously in a separate recognition, but wanted to bring this effort and these individuals forward to the commissioners and to the rest of the organization and public to recognize the great work. So I don't know, Marcia or Mary, if you have anything that you want to add.
100 hours per month. Holy cow. That's remarkable on an ongoing basis.
Thank you, commissioners, for giving us this chance to show off a little bit. And this is shows that a good team with great momentum, what we can accomplish. And I would say you ain't seen nothing yet.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Like it. Thank you, commissioners. Then, you know, that's 1,200 hours a year. That's what, about a 0.65 FTE that you've created. Talk about structural stability in our budget. I'm looking at how it forms. So thank you very much.
It's one of the great things about this organization, Mr. Chair, is that we have employees across the organization that roll up their sleeves. They're not doing this to get an award recognition. That sort of comes after the fact. They don't know. It's actually a surprise when they get it. They don't know that they're getting it. It's kind of fun to walk into a room and they think they're there for a meeting and they actually get a certificate. So they don't do it for recognition. They do it because this is part of being a public servant and working with limited resources. And it's really great to have a culture in an organization where employees are encouraged and rewarded for doing innovative work like this. So I want to thank all of you for the great work that you're doing.
Thank you very much. Very good. And I'll bet you thought you were here for a turn of the 20th century history lesson. No.
Yes.
Thank you very much. $100 a week.
That's impressive. You know, that what's amazing, what they're doing exactly is what the private sector does.
Yeah, exactly.
And you realize how long it takes all the governments to do too. They're ahead of the game. That's what's incredible.
And they're not reducing workforce, they're adding
I know.
breadth of the work that we can do. It's fantastic. We'll recess for about 2 minutes while the room clears and pictures are taken. So we'll reconvene in 2 minutes. Meeting. Thank you, Commissioners, for a great morning. We have before us a consent calendar. The consent calendars will be considered by a single motion. Any items wishing to have been that anyone would have wished to remove would have been removed at this point. By this point, so we have the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Williams. The consent calendar. Discussion to the motion. I see no discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bozievich excused absent. County Council announcements. I see none this morning. County Administration. Any announcements, Mr. Mokrzycki?
Just a quick one, Mr. Chair. I thought I'd share. I'm not sure if the commissioners saw. We had a great op-ed this morning in the Register Guard, written by the chair and vice chair of our budget committee, Dennis Hidgmans and Herb Vlodman. Wrote this. The headline reads, "County lays strong foundation for fiscal health." And so I thought it was great that the citizen members, two of the citizen members of our budget committee, the chair and vice chair, took the time. They talked about their combined total 20 years between them on the budget committee and their observation about what has happened in terms of creating fiscal health and stability in Lane County. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And nice to hear the citizen voices from the budget committee and their experience on the work that has happened here. And of course, we greatly appreciate the citizen volunteers who commit their time to that effort. So just wanted to share that. I don't have anything else right now, Mr. Chair, unless you have questions for me.
Questions or comments? That was a great article. I didn't know it was coming. I opened it this morning and said, well, who wrote that? Chair and Vice Chair. Then we'll move along to a report on 2014-17 quarterly strategic plan update. Ms. Mokrajewski, I believe this morning we have Ms. Williams.
We do, Mr. Chair, and I will embarrass Judy a little bit by saying that she's due within a matter of days. And so we joked about, as you present the update on the strategic plan, do we have a plan if you go into labor here in the middle of this presentation?
We do. You take it away, Steve.
Okay, all right.
Well, we tried to stretch it out as long as we could this morning. So.
We have a strategic plan, Steve.
We do have a strategic plan. Let's get through this, okay? And so thank you for being here, Judy, and I'll turn it over to Judy for the presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good morning, Chair Farr and Commissioners. So I'm presenting a quarterly update to you on the strategic plan, as we do every quarter. And again, just as a refresher, I have a few slides this morning, so I'll go through those fairly quickly. And again, we try to look at the plan every once in a while so that we have an active plan, and we're really working towards it and not just setting it on the shelf. So it's a quote up there. The progress to date, we started this in 2014. This plan was adopted in November of 2015. And since then, we've been doing quarterly reports to you. We've had annual work sessions each year where we've adjusted the plan, added some things, taken away, based on the work that we're doing. And then we continue to have a fairly large plan. So again, 66 ongoing action items, which is part of the attachment A, and also 33 completed action items. So we've been busy these last few years. So I'm going to walk through some slides that really kind of focus briefly on what's on target, what are we monitoring, and then in your packet as well, there's a summary of all of those that we've completed as well. And then just a refresher, this information is all on our website as well. So it's in the packet this morning, but also our strategic planning website. On the left-hand side, you can see all the quarterly reports that we've had over the last few years. On the right-hand side, a number of handy tools that you can go to and others can access throughout, so that you can quickly see what's the plan, what's a one-pager, what are we working towards, and what are some of these accomplishments. So I just wanted to put that out there. So I have about 9 slides to quickly walk through. Again, there's never enough time to really focus on all of the work that we're doing, but I'll put some bullet points up there and I'll briefly walk through these and then summarize kind of the next steps for our next plan. So we have 3 priorities: a safe and healthy county, vibrant communities, and infrastructure. And some of those items that we're monitoring on the safe and healthy county side, there's just a few, and it's in regards to prioritizing federal forest policy and some of the work with the cross-laminated timber effort. And so there's been a lot of work through United Front. So some of those things that we're monitoring is really the next step. So working with AOC, getting some advocacy investments initiated. Work on the Mental Health Authority of Counties, again, a lot of that is somewhat on hold. So we're in this monitoring phase until we hear more about the healthcare issues. Public outreach efforts, again, just monitoring those, somewhat mostly a timing issue in terms of those larger plans like the transportation safety plan. There was a lot of collaboration, and now they're somewhat on hold until the next plan. So briefly walk through some of those that are on target. And again, after today, we could move that first one onto the completed item in terms of developing and adopting a structurally balanced budget. So that did happen this morning. A lot of great work and effort into going forward with a balanced budget. Coordinating efforts, again, as you've well known, a lot of work with going back into DC with commissioners, with staff, not only DC, but also Salem, but just continuing to advocate for issues for Lane County. A lot of work on the transportation bill at the state level as well. The next three bullet points are really just a lot of collaboration work. Again, as we talk about the sheriff's office, parole and probation, county administration, health and human services with behavioral health, the district attorney's office. Try not to leave anybody out, but that's the internal Lane County partners, but a lot of external work as well with LCOG and our partners to sponsors to really come up with how are we best handling our public safety system. And so a lot of progress on continuing to track measures, to follow procedures so that we're meeting the goals of the state so that we can continue to get some of those dollars. The last kind of three items are really around transportation that were added in the last work session, and a lot of work is being done there with updates on the transportation safety plan and a transportation action plan, and then some of those are plans that are going to follow once those are adopted. A couple others briefly on the Safe and Healthy County in regards to the CHIP, which is our again, these items were also added in our last work session around the health improvement plan, community health improvement plan. So a lot of work being done, again, collaborations with county administration, economic development, health and human services to really address those economic issues. A lot of work being done with the career and technical education, the CTEs, really working to highlight how we can collaborate and continue to collaborate. A lot of work being done with the county, Lane ESD, and then kind of a focus more lately on rural areas too. So really trying to connect business owners, property owners, connecting them to high schools that have, metal programs and that sort of thing to promote those. Supportive housing, a lot of work done there. Again, another critical need in our community as we hear over and over. Enhancing data and reporting on health needs. There's a task force that you'll hear back from at the board soon, but they're in their implementation phase right now of that plan. And so exploring some funding options, and you'll see a report back soon. For vibrant communities, this priority, a couple items that we are monitoring would be just some of the collaboration with the Glenwood Refinement Plan and continuing to support there. Some work on the environmental stewardship plan, and some of that I think will move forward once we do have a procurement person on board as well. That was recently added in the last budget too. So it's really just trying to identify all these plans we have throughout the county. How can we highlight those, really show all of the work that we have been doing and put them all into kind of one plan and work on next steps there. Briefly, some of those items that are on target in the vibrant communities area. Again, working with our partners on cross-laminated timber efforts, rural economic development plan, a lot of work, great work with the Rural Prosperity Initiative, investment in other opportunities throughout their community, a lot of collaboration with our land management division to get development opportunities on board and on time, permits in a timely manner, responding to businesses in a quick time period, and then creating and implementing the land management strategic plan, which you've recently adopted, and so they're working on that implementation phase. The Vegetation Management Task Force recommendations, moving on very well, so that's coming again to the board very soon. They've been doing a lot of work with the Public Health Board and have approved some of the products, and so they'll be coming back to the board very soon. Equity and Access Plan, as we've heard of this morning, some great, amazing progress there with our office and with the intern's assistant, Kayla. So in the next month or two, there's a plan to have a 6-month strategic plan for this advisory board and for the county as a whole. Again, a lot of work, great work on recruitment, selection. The intern program, as you've heard, is great success and wonderful display this morning that we got to witness. So lots of progress there. On the infrastructure piece, a couple items that we're monitoring. A road fund analysis, reserve analysis, just the timing of it with other budget projects going on. This is hopefully coming back in the October realm to take it to finance and audit and then back to the board for a policy recommendation. A lot of work on our facilities, and there was a condition assessment that was just completed with our Lane Event Center, and so now they're kind of working on a couple other plans as well after that. So they're still reviewing that plan, but the next step is a market demand analysis, and then with that would come a business center plan. So what is it what's needed there at Lane Event Center, and how do we get there for the future? Briefly, some items that are on target, developing partnership opportunities for facilities needs for animal services. There's been some discussions here and around what the needs are and looking out long term. So there was discussions in April at a recent meeting with the Animal Services Committee. And so I believe that report back is coming to the board fairly soon. This is securing leases and with public and private entities. One item that would be great to highlight here is really the work that was done with the Force Work Camp. A lot of collaboration here to make the best use of what was a county property. Work with our capital projects manager, Brian Craner, Public Works, Betty Mishu, Jim Cheney, and legal. Just a great effort to find the best use for that property. And now there's a great veterans program that's running out of there, saving the county a lot of money and having a great use for that property as well. It's a great success. Additional park infrastructure, you've had reports back recently of the fish hatchery and a partnership with the Lane County Parks. The Parks Advisory Committee and Task Force is hard at work on the new Parks Master Plan, as you know, and you've heard of quite a bit. And they've had a lot of the outreach sessions that came to an end, and so they're still busy working, but with the plan of having an adopted plan this spring of 2018. Let's see, one last slide on progress. Infrastructure LEAP, as you've heard, again, another amazing example this morning with our Lanegenuity program, but great efforts there in training and getting programs entered into LEAP so that we can have some savings, have our staff updated with the latest and greatest trainings. Celebrating the hard work of employees. We've had 62 employee and group initiatives for the Lanegenuity program that we've highlighted and honored since the start of the program. So it's a great program to highlight and great success there. Again, the intern program that we've heard that it's taken off quite well. Internal and external communications, continuing to enhance that, the monthly newsletters, keeping that list serve of good contacts there on our communication and keeping employees and outside parties interested and engaged in what we're doing at Lane County. Performance audits, you'll hear later today about an update on the latest one, the road maintenance, and Ms. Shanda Miller will be talking to you about that soon. And then I believe there's one final report, the final audit that she's working on as well. And then continual work on our developing internal cost controls. So there was a recent kind of business analysis alignment review of technology services that was just recently completed. And we have a couple others lined up in the future to look at our fleet and facilities to kind of make sure we're looking internally in terms of cost savings. And so with that, that's a summary of what I have for the continual work that we do on our current strategic plan. And again, I'm happy to do these updates. I just really compile all the lists, but it's the staff at the county, commissioners, our leadership that's really putting in the hard work and doing the day-to-day work to get a lot of this done. So it's been exciting to look at these quarterly reports. This is somewhat the final quarterly report. We do have this is to end in 2017, this current plan. And so we did discuss briefly at the last quarterly report, just wanting to try and get feedback from you on what you wanted to see next time, what the process might look like, the timing, a quick summary on the feedback that we heard. I think the day that this came to you was when Commissioner Stewart had announced his resignation. So there was a good discussion on let's make sure we're not rushing this and that there's enough time to get somebody on board to really have a chance to learn as much as possible. So maybe delaying the start date a bit from early summer. We discussed having an external facilitator. We did that last time and it went very smooth. Having it at an off-site location was another highlight that you guys had mentioned. Having staff feedback, I guess a little bit more staff feedback. We talked a little bit about maybe an open house just for staff during work hours or after hours, having that input because they're the ones helping with this plan on a day-to-day basis. So we also talked about having an open house as well as possible I put e-outreach opportunities. So we've had an interactive website in the past where we've asked questions to the public to try and get interaction and, what is it that our community is looking for? But we're looking at other methods to really engage community members and our residents. So what other methods do those look like? And then quick last slide, a brief rough outline on the timeline. So we're really trying to narrow down the facilitator and get the specifics. And I will, as soon as we hear more, I can work on getting these items on your calendar. But a rough idea is July, we would start with an employee survey, and hopefully we can use some of the aspects on the current employee survey that's out there that we're getting results on now. And then in August, possibly late August, again, we've looked at board calendars, down weeks, and trying to plan this for the best success. So late August, possible that kickoff meeting to really start delving in to the plan. With October or September, some follow-up meetings. October is really kind of working on that draft plan and then engaging in the feedback process with staff, the public, and then coming back with a hopeful final review of this current plan and where we're at, but also a proposed plan for coming back to you in December so that we can hopefully have a completed plan, one new one ready to go for 2018.
Perfect. Can you keep that slide up, please, Ms. Williams, for the purpose of discussion?
Sure.
Very good. Before I ask the board for comments on timeline, et cetera, just a couple of comments on, you mentioned that we did not want to rush moving into this plan because of Commissioner Stewart's resignation, the subsequent appointment of Commissioner Williams, allowing Commissioner Williams to basically get a little bit of experience at the table under his belt before we move forward. I appreciate that. But, we don't rush things at Lane County by any stretch of the imagination. We do things in the appropriate time frame quite often. And we did replace Commissioner Stewart with Commissioner Williams, a pretty good time frame. Just point out that our counterparts across the hall, the City of Eugene, have not yet replaced George Poling, who resigned 2 months or announced resignation, I think it was 2 months before Commissioner Stewart. That's the pace of things. I'm reading here from an article that I wrote some time ago. A timeline is in place for continuing the development and adopting a strategic plan for Lane County. So this was written when we were in the time frame for adopting the plan. You've just outlined a very rigorous work plan that's underway, and that is dynamic. It changes continually. You add tactics to the plan. I wrote that on September 16th, 2014. So just a couple of years later, here 2.5 years later, we have really made significant strides on the strategic plan. It was one of your major priorities when you came to Lane County, and it works. The entire county knows what the plan is. The entire county participates in the administration of the plan and the success of the different items on the plan. I'm going to point out another article that I wrote. This article I wrote in January. And in this article I said, so we will keep envisioning Eugene for a short while longer. Do not despair. The end of this data gathering phase seems to be in sight. And I'll compare that with the way we seem to do things in the county. In 2.5 years, we've had this remarkable strategic plan that we've made tremendous strides on. I wrote that on January 14th regarding Envision Eugene. Do not despair. The end of this data gathering phase seems to be in sight. I wrote that on January 14th. Oh, by the way, that was January 14th, 2011, 6.5 years ago. So we move at a different pace over here at the county, and I'm pleased to see this report, Ms. Williams. You said it was kind of a matter-of-fact report, but it outlines just tremendous progress that has happened in this building and with this Board of Commissioners, with this administration over the course of the last only 2 years. It's remarkable the strides that we've made. Thank you for this report, and Mr. Mokrajewski, thank you for commissioning Ms. Williams in these last few days before she takes some personal leave. So at this point, I'll open to the board for comments on the strategic plan. Commissioner Lyken, excuse me, then Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you very, very much for the update, and really appreciate it. I'm gonna suggest, though, one suggestion maybe to alter, change a little bit, and the reason why is because when you're in these different meetings, different groups, you hear different names, this type of thing, or maybe what should. So what I'd like to see us do is, instead of just focus on cross-laminated timber, CLT, let's change and alternate that to engineered wood products. And the reason why, CLT actually falls under engineered wood products, but there's types of engineered wood products that are actually out on market now.
Developed here.
They're developed here. And the challenge right now with CLT is it's still a proof of concept. And so I don't want to get us too narrowed in on just focusing on CLT only. I know that the project up in Portland, in the Pearl District, they've at least got their permits. I also understand there's a financing gap on that project. I think it's 11-story tall building made of wood, so primary out of CLT. But that's still a proof of concept. And by the way, it was highly subsidized. So it wasn't just private money building it. And so that's going to be a really, once that's built, I think we'll get to an idea to see how well this works. So I just want to make sure we're not too narrowly focused on CLT only, because I think what that does is it leaves us out of really being a support for those other types of companies that will come in where the engineered wood products actually, in a sense, solve many of the same issues, and that CLT is not. And this isn't to disparage CLT. I do believe that this is something that will be coming in the future, but because right now it's a proof of concept, it's not quite there. I've always said if it was there, you'd see the big boys and big girls investing in it, and they're not quite there yet. And so that's why I'm going to suggest we use the terminology engineered wood products instead of just focusing on CLT only. And I think that will encompass a great more that's happening here in Lane County. But other than that, I liked your quote in the very beginning from Winston Churchill. I think it is important to really go through a strategic plan, but it's also important to smell the roses once in a while. And I got to tell you, when I was in Springfield, we didn't do that very much. And you kind of forgot about the great things that were accomplished. It was funny you were bringing up some of the quotes or the things you wrote 2011 from the city of Eugene. When Mike Kelly was a city manager, there are times when we'd say, put your seatbelts on, otherwise you're going to be falling out of the truck. Because it was go get her, go get, go get, go get. And you probably shouldn't have a city manager and a mayor that aggressive, but you did. And that's just the way life was at the time. But really good. I really appreciate this update. And it really gives us a chance to step back and just see some of the great things that are being accomplished here. And but smelling the roses, that's a good thing to do once in a while. So I really appreciated that quote from Winston Churchill, that you can have a strategic plan, but if you don't step back and take a look at some of the things you've actually accomplished, you know, and to remind yourself, this is why we have it. And so thank you. Great work. Appreciate it.
And following the quote from Winston Churchill, I'll follow it with a quote from Mayor Sid Lycan from right around that same period in time, talking to a group of people who said, well, you can tell the difference when you're driving down the freeway. To the casual observer, you can tell where Springfield is and where Eugene is. Springfield's the one with the cranes. So, that was years ago. Commissioner Sorensen.
Well, first of all, just generically on the strategic plan, I think that we are making great strides. I don't really have any strong feelings about where you're headed. I think it's good. I do think that that our economic development activities should be harmonized with some of our other activities. I know that's been a theme up here. One in particular is this issue of engineered or cross-laminated timber. And that article about the 12-story high-rise building at the corner of Northwest 10th and Gleason in downtown Portland, that building was announced in October of 2015. Mm-hmm. So the good news is that German and Austrian technology have been using more and more laminated, put together, engineered products. And, you know, for the people that aren't following this on a daily basis, which I certainly wasn't, the summary that I liked was giant panels of wood are made out of many layers of timber sheets that are very tightly pressed together. The wood comes from timber in rural Oregon, and the panels themselves will be made long before they arrive at the building site. Thomas Robinson, the founder of Lever Architecture, the Portland-based firm that is part of the project, said this construction method can be likened to, quote, an incredibly large IKEA cabinet.
I think that's accurate.
Their proposal is to facilitate taking wood that is scrap wood, it is not currently as valuable, and have it manufactured near the site that it's grown. And that really resonates, I think, with those of us here in this room where we're concerned about, well, what's going to happen to these rural economies, and if, in fact, this manufacturing occurs closer to where the forests are located. So to me, it's something more for us, and I think what we call it is different. I know that when the cross-laminated beam was invented, 30, 40 years ago, it was quite an innovation in construction. And you see in buildings even now in Lane County where there are 4-foot high, 1-foot wide beams that support, a big building, and they're fairly common. This is just taking it to a new level. And I know that the city of Springfield's been involved with going back to the Forest Service's National Forest Products Laboratory, which is located in Wisconsin. and I know they've done that. Mayor Lundberg and I are on the Lane Workforce Partnership Board, and she's described their work in support of this at the Lane Workforce Partnership. Again, that's a connection to our workforce connection. And Gary, what's the name of the Cottage Grove counselor that's on that board? Barabee? He's an older gentleman. His son's involved with the garbage company and Burback. I'm sorry, I got the name wrong. But Councilor Burback is on the Workforce Partnership from Cottage Grove. And so this has been discussed there, and I know this is a little outside the scope of the strategic plan, but I think that you're hearing from the commissioners about how we want to tie in economic concerns, business development, ideas of how to integrate our technology. And I'll just leave it that I think that we should get more involved, and this is relevant to the plan. I think we should get more involved in what the U of O is doing with the Philip and Penny Knight money. And this is an example of a technology that could be researched, could be formulated, and with the amount of money that they are working with over there, and their stated desire to connect the University of Oregon science with the work at Oregon State and with the turning it I won't say turnkey, but getting it ready for entrepreneurial activity more and more and more. I just want to lend my voice to that. And I think that, if these German and Austrian businesses have been able to do this, then, we should be doing it. And I agree with Commissioner Lyken that investors have been not coming in as rapidly as maybe we'd like them to, and maybe that's because there hasn't been enough science, there hasn't been enough technology, there hasn't been enough work done to actually show the strength and also fire resistance. Because one of the questions asked about this big building when they announced it in Portland, this 12-story building, was, okay, you're building an entire building out of wood here, okay, and one of the risks of a commercial building is fire damage. Well, what burns easier, steel or wood? What burns easier, concrete or wood? One guy said, well, why don't they make it out of paper? It'll burn faster. So to me, there is a liability associated with this technology that we need to, and if Oregon isn't going to do this, okay, and we're going to leave it to a private sector, well, okay, maybe it'll happen like it is happening already in Europe. But why not speed it up? So,
thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. And Commissioner Lyken had one thing to say about the Knight project.
No, and I think what you're hearing, this is great. I really appreciate the comments from Commissioner Sorensen, because while this is a strategic plan for Lane County, I think it tells you that I'm looking at Judy, I'm looking at you, Steve, I'm looking at our staff, and really listening to the direction come from the board, because I think what Commissioner Sorensen, what I'm hearing is that this goes way beyond just our borders here, just within our departments. Right. This is where Lane County can be much more involved in, and I think what we bring to the table is really significant. What I'd like to just comment real quickly, Sarah Means is obviously very, very active in this, and so we're very, very fortunate we have our economic development department engaged in this. And just to answer your question real quickly, Commissioner Sorensen, so I've had the opportunity to sit down with the folks there that are looking at designing and working on the Knight Science Campus, and we've actually had this conversation about whether engineered wood products, CLT, you name it, this type of thing can be used as a potential when these buildings are built. And again, over time, and I like your thoughts here is when you talk about the different startups, how is this going to be? This is where we, as Lane County, working with our strategic plan, can be such a strong support, not only to our government partners, but even more than that, to our private sector partners, and really show that this is a great opportunity to make these types of investments, to create jobs, create wealth in our communities, and that's why I've said all along, I think this night science camp, this is a game changer we haven't seen here before. This is the Research Triangle in North Carolina. This is along that same line. So it's really exciting. But Pete, I just really appreciate your comments. I really do. I think it really is helpful and is fantastic to see the board here look at this as being just a real grand opportunity where we can be a significant player and partner with not only U of O, but I think just the private sector themselves as they're looking at developing and what's going to come out of this. So thanks for your comments, Pete. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Commissioner Like and Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, sir. A couple things come to mind historically. Lane County, specifically southern Lane County, 40 years ago was home to the largest manufacturers of laminated beams in the world. And I knew folks that worked in those factories, and I actually have a shop building that is constructed with trusses from that from the Weyerhaeuser factory. Those beams are 14 inches wide and 18 inches tall. They're laminated 2x products. They're continuous span. I believe there may be some dove joints in there, but it's an incredible opportunity and a joy for me to hear about engineered wood products coming back into the conversation. We have the ability, and I believe there's a company in Riddle that has been very successful in the CRT piece. There's another very strong component to the use of wood fiber in this kind of construction, and that is that wood will be used as a building material. In some cases, there's no reason to expect those buildings not to last several hundred years. My home is built entirely of wood, and it's approaching 100 years of age. And it's interesting to note that all of that wood is sequestered carbon. And I think that's a very significant piece of the equation. The more wood products that you can use, the greater you have environmentally as well in the sequestration of carbon. I guess that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. And rather than comment on a single element of the strategic plan update, just in general, the whole direction that we're going moving forward is just remarkable. There are 60 different points that you just made, each one of which is we could have substantial discussion on. You know, the truss joist Macmillan was in Bethel, and finger joints is what they use. It's pretty amazing. But the one thing that I wanted to point out is just one of the other 59 points was the supportive housing effort. And I'd like to congratulate Mr. Mokrahajski and staff for moving forward with supportive housing, which really affects the lives of virtually every person in the community. And supportive housing sometimes is called housing first, but it's housing for people who otherwise have great difficulty finding houses and staying on a health management plan, whether it be medication or whether it just be living in a stable environment. And Mr. Mokrahajski is working right now, along with staff and with other jurisdictions and with HACSA, to develop our first supportive housing unit on our behavioral health campus, on the Surbu campus, out adjacent to our behavioral health facility. We're still a ways away, and there are still some obstacles we have to surmount in order to do it. But we're moving forward, not just with the jobs and economy, but also with health and human services, infrastructure. The county is just, Christine this morning talked about a deliberately structurally balanced budget. Everything that we're doing right now seems deliberately structurally balanced, and I'm really pleased once again to be a part of what we're moving forward with, Mr. Mokrahajski. And Ms. Williams, thank you very much for this brief update, which covers a great deal of territory and thousands and thousands of hours that have gone into the work that you just described today. Thank you very much. With no further discussion, Ms. Williams, thank you very much. And we'll move along to the next item on the agenda, which is also a report on a financial report, our third quarterly FY16-17 financial report. And today, Mr. Mokrahewski, I believe we once again have Mr. Mosby at the table with us.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Farr and Commissioners. Just get it pulled up here. So this is going to be the regular update of the quarterly financial report. It's going to cover the period from January 1st to March 31st, which is the third quarter of the current fiscal year. I'll go through national economic indicators, then focus on local economic indicators, and finally talk about some financial information for the county. Overall, things are largely as they have been in previous reports. The economy continues to move along at a steady pace. Unemployment continues to be quite low, and housing prices continue to go up fairly rapidly in Lane County. So I'll go over all those items in depth. Starting with national economic indicators, the CPI change nationally for the 12-month period ending in March 2017 was 2.4%. For the Portland-Salem metro area, we don't have updated information beyond December, but for the 6-month period from July to December of 2016, the CPI in the Portland-Salem MSA changed at a rate of 2.6%. Unemployment continues to be quite low nationally. The unemployment rate has dropped to 4.5% in March of 2017. That's down from 5.0% in the same period last year. Inflation decreased 0.3% in March of 2017, so it's been fluctuating up and down a little bit over the last 12 months, but overall, the all items index increased 2.4% in the last 12 months. For health insurance costs, the CPI for medical care gained 0.4% in the quarter ending of March 2017, while health insurance increased 0.6%. The annual CPI increase in health insurance from March 2016 to March 2017 was 3.3%. This is quite a bit less than we saw in the past. I think a year ago when I presented this report, the annual health insurance increase was around 8%, 6%. So health insurance growth is slowing down. For local economic indicators, unemployment in Lane County is getting quite low. In September, we were at 5.2%. In December, we're at 4.7%. And in March, we've gone down to 4.0%. In Oregon, it's the same story. We're at 4.9% in September and decreased to 3.8% in March. The national rates for the same time period are 4.9% and 4.5% respectively. We have recovered all, in terms of a total number, all jobs lost during the recession. So at the peak of the recession, we'd lost 18,000 jobs in Lane County. We have regained 18,000 jobs as of November 2016. The picture's a little mixed when you break it down by sector. As I reported previously, manufacturing has not recovered much. It's only regained 21% of the jobs lost during the recession. So this means non-manufacturing sectors have recovered quite a bit beyond those losses seen during the recession. The job growth outlook for Lane County is positive. From 20 to 24, it is we're averaging around 10, 11%. You can see on that chart we have different sectors, and the farther they are to the right of the chart, the stronger the projected growth, and the higher they are up on the chart, the higher average wages they pay. So Oregon State economists are projecting strong growth in education and health services, manufacturing, construction, and a number of other different industries. So these, on this page, we have some different elements of the economic recovery that kind of dig into factors beyond just unemployment. So the first item is labor force participation rate. Labor force participation has been quite low. We can see that on the red line, which is the actual rate, it really dipped with the recession. That gray dotted line is where we would expect it to be at based on demographic information. It has started to recover in the past few years, though it is still below where we would expect it to be at. The implied forecast is what the Oregon State economists expect this to go, where to go in the future. And we can see even the expectation through to 2020 is not that it will, that red line will meet the dotted gray line, but it will continue to be about 1% lower than where we'd expect it to be at. And there's really not any consensus on why this is amongst different economists. The U6 unemployment rate has returned to pre-recession levels of about 10%. we can see that it spiked to about 20% at the height of the recession, so this is a positive sign economically. And then finally, wage growth. Wage growth has been fairly low throughout the recovery. It's been picking up lately. We're approaching 3%, but we're still kind of around 2.5%, which is lower than the historical norm and certainly lower than the expectation of a fully recovered economy. This is certainly an item that we'll have to watch going forward. As unemployment rate stays as low as it is, the expectation is that this will go up and get closer to 3 or 4%, but it has not happened yet. Finally, real estate statistics. Average price of a home in Lane County grew to $272,900 in March of 2017. That's from $244,900 in March of 2016. That's an 11.4% increase in the period. In the same comparison period, the median sale price rose by 10.1% from $227,000 to $250,000. Total market time decreased from 86 days to 69 days. So we have an extremely strong housing market. This picture certainly suggests that there is a lot more demand than there is supply, which is causing prices to go up and market time to decrease to very low levels. Building permit activity was mixed between January and March 2017 as compared to the same period in 2016. Residential permits increased by 13.4% and commercial permits decreased by 22.9%. And the yellow highlights in that box are the actual numbers if you're interested in seeing those. So moving on from economic data to fund data, we're on track with where we expect to be at this point in the year, which is ending in March 2017. During that time, we received 72.92% of total revenue. We received the majority of our property taxes. Federal revenue typically lags behind, and we receive that in the later part of the year. In terms of requirements, total expenditures are at 58.67%. Again, this is where we would expect to be at that point in the year. For salaries and wages and employee benefits, those tend to be a little lower than exactly where they would track time-wise because of vacancies, and other items on that list. When we spend those items just varies throughout the year. Looking at the general fund, at the end of the third quarter, the general fund has received 83.73% of its budgeted revenue. This is a decrease of 1.78% in the same period last year. And this is pretty typical within the range of what we would expect to see this year. We've received the bulk of property tax revenue, as I mentioned. And overall variance between budget and actuals is within expectations. For general fund expenditures, we've expended 67.72% of annual budgeted operating expenses. This is an increase of 1.38% in the same period last year. Again, this is certainly within norms and pretty consistent to prior years. For the road fund, we've received 73.1% of budgeted road fund operating revenue. This is a decrease of 2.3% from the same period of last year. The road fund, you're going to see a little bit of variances year over year, and that's really due to the elimination of SRS. So the budget has been steadily decreasing. You can see the change from 14-15 to 16-17 is about $5-6 million. But again, this road fund is certainly within where we'd expect it to be at this point in the year. And finally, for road fund expenditures, the county's expended 62.6% of its annual road fund operating budget. In terms of the actual dollar numbers, this is a 10.6% decrease from the same period last year. Actual expenses are down in the road fund. This is partially because the road fund has been working on structurally balancing their budget over the last few years, something that we've achieved with the 17-18 budget. So similarly with the road fund revenues, we're going to see some differences year over year in road fund expenditures, but this is certainly where we would expect to be at this point in the year and within normal limits. So with that, I can open it up to any questions that you may have.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you very much for your reference to the U6 unemployment rate. Was that an effort to try to deal with questions you've been asked over time about the real unemployment rate as opposed to the unemployment rate or the official unemployment rate?
Yeah. So, the government has a number of different unemployment rates. The one that's reported on is called the U3. So to qualify for that, you'd have to have looked for work in the last 4 weeks. So some people argue that that's too narrow of a scope for unemployment. So this U6 is a much broader measurement, capturing really people who work part-time but would like full-time work, people who are out of work but have not looked for work in the last 4 weeks but are still willing and available to work. So it tends to capture a larger segment of those out of work than the standard.
Well, my son, who's an accomplished business executive now, he's always telling me, hey, did you see that article in Forbes the other day? Did you read that Forbes article? So I've been required now to keep up with this. And so, hey, come on, Sid, you should be reading Mother Jones to counterbalance this.
I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to read Mother Jones.
So I was reading a Forbes article called Tackling the Real Unemployment Rate. And the author says, imagine being served your poolside drinks by a lawyer or getting your chicken sandwich delivered by an experienced marketing professional. The first is a friend of mine. The second is my waitress a few weeks ago. Both lost jobs during the economic downturn, but both took available work to pay the bills while looking for new positions. And apparently this U6 unemployment rate is a much broader indicator. It includes people that have been looking for work but are now not looking for work. And so it seems like it's getting more at the questions I've been asking up here about, well, what are we going to do about all these people that are officially not unemployed because they are not looking for work within the last 4 weeks and they've given up, or they're dejected, or they've been told no so many times that they kind of predict the answer would be no the next time they try to get a job. And this underemployment problem, I think, it does affect our community in a big way. I think there's a lot of people that do not like to say, I'm not really working at my full potential. And I think that it's a kind of a hidden thing, and it affects our ability to, have people pay taxes. They're not earning as much money. They're not, and I think it affects other social issues that we deal with around here called, mental problems and medical problems that are associated with mental problems. So to me, it's a big issue of how do we engage those people and how do we provide them with opportunities. And, I don't know how to change this, but I do think that it's a portion of our economic development and a portion of our mental health responsibilities to go out there. And I'm not talking about any particular age group, because I think you have underemployment in youth and young, but you also have underemployment in the older worker categories. And so to me, this is a big problem that we need to be dealing with. And I don't know, I think that the presentation of the U6 unemployment rate is much broader, and it shows that during the recession it got up to 20%. Is that a Lane County number or is that a state number?
This is for the state of Oregon.
State. So, ours was probably worse because the recession hit Lane County harder than it did the state. And so you can imagine in rural Oregon what that U6 rate might be in smaller communities. And I don't know that they've computed that. I don't really need to know that, but I can certainly see that means that maybe a third of people out there are in that category. That's a big number. That's a huge number. And I think it's comparable to our numbers of people in poverty. There must be a strong relationship between the unemployment rate and the poverty rate. So anyway, I just want to highlight that I think that's great. You've included that. Have you done that before and I just haven't caught it, or you can tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I think Commissioner Bozievich made a comment about it a few reports ago, and so on the last report I did, I newly included it. So
okay, so this is like the second time you've included it in the quarterly. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Sorensen. I think you've nailed it on various fronts. I think you've identified some things that are obvious, but oftentimes understated or not stated at all. So thank you for your comments. They're very, very, I share a great deal of what you just expressed. And then secondly, I'd like to thank you for a very clean and concise report. The format is very user-friendly. I really appreciate the way that it is presented, and you're to be congratulated on an easy document to read, probably not so much on the easy part of putting together, but very user-friendly, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would agree. This is really good information. And as you were going through this, I was tying this to our last conversation with the strategic plan, and how, because this is the data, and the strategic plan is the, what if, the possibilities. And so we're seeing this data here, and how do we tie this in together and to move things forward? And it's something that I think is really important. This to me is the kind of conversations every government body in the United States needs to be having. The federal level, the state level, county, city level, are these kind of talking about, okay, we have a strategic plan, now we have the information, how do we make that work on behalf of the citizens here in Lane, and for us it's Lane County. One of the things I will say that jumped out to me, and I'm guessing it probably jumped out to Chair Farr as well, and that was 11.9% increase in housing, wages flat. And yet, we're trying to figure out, so when we see the 5,000 folks graduating from University of Oregon, how many of those would we like to somehow keep here? Well, if this is going to be known as the area where wages are flat but housing is increasing, if I were a student, I'd be saying, how do I get the hell out of here? Honestly, I mean, it's just not. So these are some of the things that we really need to be, from a policy standpoint. How can we work with especially our local partners, the city partners, but even the state, and say, we need to create this. We need to talk about, because the one thing you don't hear out of Salem right now, you do not hear this word, growth. You hear taxes, you hear about we need this, we need this, we need this kind of revenue, but you don't hear growth. I would love for somebody, I don't care if it's Governor Brown, if it's Governor Kitzhaber before, if it's the next governor, I would like for somebody just to say, our goal is to achieve 3% growth in the state of Oregon. Wouldn't that be just unbelievable to hear? But yet you don't hear that. And it's very disappointing, because so much of what you're talking about, wages, housing, can be focused right back on growth. And to my friend Commissioner Sorensen, I've at least started reading the Huffington Post a little more. So I will go to Mother Jones. I'll try on that instead of that boring Wall Street Journal. I mean, that's so I'll do my best. But thanks for reminding me. Mother Jones, yeah, okay, I'll give it a shot. So, but really, the report to me, and I think totally agree with Commissioner Williams. Very concise. I mean, this is really, really good. And the U6, I know Commissioner Bozovich has really harped on this, and so I'm really glad that you have that in there. And I think it's important. It's important for us to really take a look at that. What are some of the things that we can, again, from Lane County's perspective, partner with especially our city partners, and help in working to achieve some of these long-term goals. But really good report. Really gives us a good snapshot of the information today and what's needed to continue to improve and work on our strategic plan. So great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan, and I'm glad that I'm not the only one who's going to talk about housing just a little bit. But I'd like to compliment you on the financial report. The financial report differs from an economic forecast in that this tells the facts. Economic forecast tells whatever the guy happens to be thinking about at the time, and it may change tomorrow. So I think you've given us a good basis in what is really happening locally in the economy and how are we handling it. Between this and this strategic plan update that we had this morning, we have exactly what Commissioner Lyken, was talking about, and that is you have the data, you have the numbers, how are you going to handle it? What are you going to do to make it fit best for the people who are living their lives here, the kids who are growing up here, the people who don't have what they need here? And that's my segue into people not having what they need here. Housing costs is going up 11.5%. Well, you know, that goes all the way from the top to the bottom. It may not be exactly 11.5%, but the rental rates are going up at the same rate in time. And I mentioned earlier, we just had someplace close to 2,000 kids graduate from high school. Where are they going to live if the job market, the wages aren't increasing, yet the housing is? Where are they going to live? Talk about the people graduating from the U of O, the Brain Trust, a chunk of which would love to keep here. Kyla this morning, would love to keep her here, but are we able to not just offer good wages, but offer a good economical place to live? And when Eugene City is pushing the second highest in the nation in comparison to wages and housing costs, and it's going up and not going up on the one side, we continue to have this disparity where people are paying way more percentage of their earned income in housing costs. And how do we address that? Well, one way easily is to have more places to live, more places to build houses, more easy places to build less expensive houses, not the 1 acre lots above 900 feet in South Eugene, which aren't easy to build and cheap, and that adds to the cost of the housing. You know, not the 15 to 25% slope lands in South Eugene, but more of the easier to develop, easier to build lands. And how do we also address the infill that we all know is necessary? Well, I've got a report, Mr. Mokrajewski. We got a report just a couple of days ago on the additional dwelling units the Poverty and Homelessness Board that the city of Springfield is embarking upon. It's allowing additional dwelling units for giving or paying SDCs and making it easier for people to add a second residence on their existing city lot. We don't allow that very easily in the city of Eugene, nor in the city of Cottage Grove, nor in the outlying areas. Springfield's pioneering the way. And I foresee very easily in the next couple of years this could add 800 to 1,200 new housing units, affordable housing units in Springfield. It's got something we've got to look at. We have to look at all of the ways that we can make this economic forecast work to our benefit rather than hinder the living conditions for the people who are trying to bring their kids up in our community. Now, I'm not lecturing you, John. You're actually giving us good information here, but we have to do what Commissioner Lyken said. We have to take it in conjunction with our strategic plan and our governmental partners' strategic plan and make sure that we're doing something with it, that the net result is less people are hungry, less people are suffering from paying too much of their wages in housing, or not having a house to live in, and ways that people can actually spend the money that they're earning on the 10% unemployment rate, U6, unemployment rate that we're looking at. All good news, but only good news if we use it to our advantage and use it to make certain that people are living better in our community. And when I say living better, I'm not talking about better vacations and faster cars. I'm talking about basic living conditions, nutrition, and places to live, that they're not spending 50 or 60% of their income to live in these houses, whether it's a rental or a one-bedroom apartment rental or a 1,600 square foot house. So thanks for the report. All good news, John, and very, very nicely put together. Ms. Mokrajewski, we can use this to our advantage, and we can use it in conjunction with Ms. Williams' presentation earlier and really make this a better place for everybody to live. I'm looking right now at the Envision Eugene, the 7 pillars of Envision Eugene. Great 7 pillars. The second one is provide affordable housing for all income levels. Bravo. Let's do it. Thank you very much, Ms. Mokrajewski. Thank you, John. Further discussion? I don't believe we need a motion on this. Just let's carry the good news forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we'll move along. And Commissioner Lyken, thanks for giving me that open door.
I want to throw a high curve.
More good news. We have Ms. Miller's report is in the matter of presenting the Lane County Road and Bridge Maintenance Performance Audit. And today, let's see, we received this report about a week ago, and today we have Mr. Mokrasi. Thank you. We have Ms. Miller presenting the Lane County Road and Bridge Maintenance Performance Audit. Ms. Miller. Thank you for being patient as we waited through two great presentations prior to your coming in with a third.
Oh, sure. Just going to get this going here. Okay. It looks like I don't have a clicker, so I'll just sit at the table. So good morning, Chair Farr. I think it's still morning. Good morning, Commissioners.
It still is.
Yes.
It is.
So before I get started with the presentation, I wanted to take a moment to thank Tim Elsey, the Director of Public Works, Oren Schumacher, the Manager of the Division of Road and Bridge Maintenance, and also Division staff for their cooperation and openness during the audit. They all made my job easier by helping provide information quickly and taking the time to answer my questions. So many thanks to the department. So just briefly showing you what I'll be talking about today. I'll talk briefly about the audit resources, the audit objective, and the scope, and then I'll present the overall conclusion, and then I'll give background information, more detailed audit results, and then the recommendations.
And if I may point out that anyone watching or anyone here can go to our agenda for today, click on this agenda item, and you can see a full report, the Lane County Road and Bridge Maintenance Report, about a 27-page, I believe, document or so, which contains the full text of the information that Ms. Miller is going to give us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Farr. The report is also on the County Performance Auditor's webpage, lanecounty.org/lane audits. So, thank you. So for audit resources, total audit hours was 652, which included, it looks like my picture is covering it up, but intern hours was 167 hours of that. I had one intern, Shanna Bressi, who worked part-time on the project for about 10 weeks. And just to give a little bit of perspective on the scope of this audit, in comparison to the behavioral health audit that I presented last, the hours are about half of the behavioral health audit. The behavioral health audit was about 1,200 hours. So. For audit scope, it was the Division of Road and Bridge Maintenance at Lane County Public Works, and I focused on pavement maintenance and preservation and bridge maintenance and preservation. Wanted to mention what was excluded from the audit due to resource constraints and the time involved is I excluded stormwater system maintenance, gravel road maintenance, road safety, and bridge seismic vulnerability. All of those are still important, but I needed to really, pick a topic to scope down on. So I chose pavement and bridge maintenance and preservation. The audit objective was to assess the current condition of Lane County's road, pavement, and bridges and evaluate management strategies and funding needs for protecting the county's road and bridge capital assets. And this audit topic was identified during a county-wide risk assessment conducted in the spring of 2015. So the overall conclusion is we found county road pavements are currently rated in good or very good condition, and bridges are rated in fair to very good condition. However, current funding and pavement and bridge preservation activities fall short of what is needed to protect these assets moving forward. So for a little bit of background before I get into the detailed results, the county manages 1,436 miles of roads, of which 1,277 are paved, and 426 bridges.
That's not lane miles, that's actual road miles, is that?
That's road miles, correct. So for bridges, the majority of Lane County's bridges were built in the 70s and 80s and are relatively young, with many that are less than 50 years old. For funding, in the past, the road fund included a significant amount of timber revenue. Prior to fiscal year 2011, timber revenue made up the majority of the division's funding, which is funded from the road fund, and the bulk of road maintenance funding now comes from the state gas tax and highway user fees. Total road fund revenues have declined significantly over the past 10 years due to the decline and end of the federal Secure Rural Schools funding.
What's that number in 2017?
So starting in 2017, there was $0 coming from the Secure Rural Schools. And so 10 years ago in 2007, it was about 20.5 million. So thus, in the last 10 years, the road fund is receiving about 20 million less now than it was 10 years ago. And these reductions in the road fund have meant service and staffing reductions in the road and bridge maintenance division. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So these next couple slides, I will touch on pavement preservation. Pavement preservation is much more cost effective than rehabilitation only. Pavement preservation includes all of the activities taken to maintain roads and preserve the investment in the county road system. Pavement preservation includes these various activities. So there's routine maintenance, which includes street sweeping, also can include tree and branch removal, such as what we had during the ice storm that we had this past winter. Preventive maintenance includes chip sealing, slurry sealing, and crack sealing. Corrective maintenance can include filling potholes or filling bigger sections of road where there's extensive cracking. Rehabilitation includes mill and fill, so milling or grinding down the pavement and then filling it with new asphalt. And then last, reconstruction would be the replacement of the entire pavement structure. Lane County assesses its pavement condition using a pavement condition index rating score. Condition assessments like the pavement condition index can help road departments establish and link maintenance priorities to organizational performance targets. The pavement condition index should be used in combination, though, with other road information such as traffic, climate, and truck weights or truckloads. The pavement condition index only rates the pavement condition, not the condition of the underlying road structure. So it is possible that a road surface may be rated in good condition, but the underlying structure could still be failing. So that's just important to note. For bridges, similar to pavement preservation, bridge preservation includes applying cost-effective bridge treatments at the right time to prevent or delay deterioration of bridges, keep bridges in good condition, and extend their life. Some bridge preventive maintenance activities are cyclical, meaning they commonly occur on a regular interval, such as every 3 years or every 10 years, depending on the maintenance type. So I put some examples on the screen there for you. The Oregon Department of Transportation's bridge inspection program inspects each of Lane County's bridges every 2 years, and bridge condition ratings are on a scale of 0 to 9. Individual bridge elements are given a rating, but the overall bridge rating can be determined by using the lowest individual bridge element rating. In addition to bridge condition ratings, inspectors provide maintenance recommendations and assign a priority level to those recommendations. So now I'll get into audit results, and first I'll talk about pavement condition. I researched best practices and found cost savings and other benefits to having a pavement preservation strategy. Pavement preservation means treating pavement even when the surface appears to be in good shape. Pavement preservation is about sealing out water and preventing cracks and potholes, which decreases the rate of the deterioration of the road. However, waiting until a problem develops, such as cracking or extensive cracking, is too late. So there's an optimal window of time for preventive treatment, beyond which it will be too late and will require more extensive correction or rehabilitation. So this slide shows you could have a rehabilitation trigger, but it is more costly. So that's the purple lines, and then the blue line would be the preventive trigger, and it does happen more frequently, but it's lower cost. So you can see the arrow there on the optimal timing of the preventative maintenance. And then there's a similar chart here. Road departments have found that preventive maintenance can preserve more road miles and add more service life at less cost per mile than a rehabilitation-only program. This is because extending the life of a road will delay the rehabilitation or reconstruction of a road. So here you can see, just graphically demonstrating the length of time that rehabilitation can be deferred by doing preventative maintenance. And it's too bad that Commissioner Bozovich isn't here, because he loves this diagram. So for condition, we found that currently the pavement condition index ratings are good or very good for 99% of Lane County's road miles. So that's really good. And that demonstrates the history of pavement preservation that Lane County has done. And it demonstrates also the prior timber funding levels and the ability to keep up with maintenance. So I also compared Lane County's pavement condition index ratings to other comparable counties, and we are still in the lead. Like I said, 99% of road miles with good or very good pavement condition, and then you can see the percentages for the other counties. So we looked at the number of miles receiving preservation treatment each year since 2005. And this bar chart shows chip seal road miles, slurry seal road miles, and overlay road miles. So those three things are preventative maintenance treatment types that are used on Lane County's roads. And you can see that there is some ups and downs. And when you get to 2015, there's a bit of a drop where there were 58 miles. And a little bit of a bump up in 2016 and 2017, but I learned from the department that 2018 and beyond, given expected current funding levels, the numbers will look more like 2015 numbers. So projecting definitely a drop in the number of miles per year. And then, so that was the stacked bar chart. This pulls out each treatment separately. So the top is the chip seal miles per year, and then the lower left is the slurry seal miles, and the right is the total thin asphalt overlay miles per year. Based on the review of the number of miles treated and looking forward into the future, and then comparing this against best practices, I concluded pavement preventive maintenance activities fall short of that needed to keep good pavement good. And the next few slides will demonstrate this. There's a pavement management concept called remaining service life that can be used to forecast future maintenance needs. Another term is service life extension. The basic concept is that the measurable loss of pavement life can be thought of as the network's total miles multiplied by 1 year. So Lane County has 1,275 miles of paved roads. For Lane County, if its road network ages 1 year, then the network ages 1,277 miles per year. To offset this loss of pavement life to the road network, the county would annually need to perform a quantity of work to extend road life equal to the mile years lost. Thus, 1,277 mile years would need to be added each year through preventive maintenance efforts to maintain the current network condition. So before I move on, I just want to make sure if there's any questions about this concept of mile years. Okay.
Just point out that it's a brilliant concept, and the Performance Audit Committee, when you and Mr. Elsey presented that, is the metric, just putting it into that really manageable number, a mile year. It gives you an easy way to look at the equilibrium of maintenance versus deterioration. So please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So to further explain this, I'll give an example. Well, first I'll share that I researched the average service life extension for the different treatment types that Lane County uses. So for slurry seal, it's expected to provide a service life extension to the road of 7 years. Chip seal is 10 years, and thin asphalt overlay is 12 years. And these are estimates, rough estimates. Of course, it'll vary depending on the road and how much traffic, but these are averages. And then, so if we took that and if we look at Lane County's plans for this summer, the county plans to treat 7.3 miles of local urban roads with slurry seal. And so to calculate the total mile years that will be added to the county's road network, you multiply 7.3 miles by the 7-year service life extension to get 51 mile years. And then we can look at all of the projects planned for this summer. So like I just showed, you've got the slurry seal of 7.3 miles, chip seal 57.2 miles, and thin asphalt overlay of 21.8 miles for a total of 86 miles. And then if you multiply those each by their service life extension years, and then you add those up, you come up with expected 884 mile years added to the network.
So about a 30% diminishment in our keeping up with the equilibrium.
Yeah, so the county will be short by about 393 mile years to maintain the current condition. And as I said, if current funding continues and the current level of service continues over time, then that backlog can add up. So I also looked at a different way to look at this. So Lane County has a pavement management system called Street Saver that has built-in scenario tools for determining projected preventive maintenance treatment needs and also funding needs. So I worked with the county to run this projection. If the county were to continue at a $4.2 million per year budget for preventive maintenance, this is what your overall PCI trend would look like over time. And again, this is just a projection, so I'm not saying that this is or will happen, but it's a possibility.
The ghost of Christmas is yet. Okay, got it.
And then also did another scenario. If we wanted to maintain the average PCI, network PCI of 80, then this is what it projects the funding need would be. And I averaged all those years to come up with an average of 6.8 million per year over the next 5 years. Again, just a projection, an estimate. So with less revenue and less road miles treated with preventive maintenance each year, the county will start to miss the window on preservation, and pavement condition will decline. This will cost taxpayers more in the long term due to the higher costs of repair, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. Another impact could be decreased customer satisfaction. I think county residents are likely pretty satisfied with the roads being in the condition that they are now, but if road condition deteriorates, then that customer satisfaction will likely go down. In addition, higher vehicle operating costs may also result for the residents of Lane County if pavement condition declines. And as this chart shows, the county can spend $1 to $5 on timely preservation treatment or $11 on future reconstruction. So future costs can also be quite high if a preventive maintenance program is not maintained at adequate levels. So now I'm going to switch to bridge condition results. Similar to pavement, bridge preservation and maintenance are cost effective and keep bridges in good condition. So currently, 98% of Lane County's bridges are rated in fair or better condition. This high percentage reflects Lane County's historical bridge preservation program versus having a replacement program. It also reflects the fact that most of Lane County's bridges, like I mentioned, were rebuilt in the 70s and 80s when federal timber funding was plentiful. So I also looked at bridge condition, what bridge condition was 10 years ago compared to 2017, and found that there are now more bridges rated as fair than there were 10 years ago, and there are now less bridges rated as good or very good than 10 years ago. So you can see a slight shift to the left in terms of lower levels of condition over time. So just something to be aware of and to continue to monitor. Due to budget reductions for maintenance supplies and staffing reductions, the number of bridges with routine and preventive maintenance activities have declined. And in the past 2 years, the bridge program completed maintenance projects for an average of 8% of bridges, leaving 92% of bridges with no maintenance work over the last 2 years. Also, again, due to budget and staffing cuts, the bridge program has not been able to keep up on needed bridge maintenance work, needed work that's been identified to keep bridges in fair or good condition. And as I mentioned, industry experts recommend routine preventive maintenance work should be done on each bridge at least every 3 to 10 years, depending on the treatment. And of Lane County's 87 bridges rated in fair condition, 26 or 30% had no maintenance activity in the past 6 years. So you want to keep your fair bridges fair. You don't want them to drop to the poor category. So it's important to have regular maintenance activities on those bridges. Another thing I looked at is I looked at the most recent bridge inspections, and there were 378 bridges that were inspected that had routine maintenance recommendations provided by ODOT, and 157 or 42% of those bridges, I found no documented bridge maintenance activity in the past 5 years. And Oregon Department of Transportation estimates this backlog of routine maintenance will cost Lane County just under $1 million to catch up with those recommendations. So for impact, if current maintenance efforts continue, Lane County's bridges are at risk for deterioration, higher repair costs, and costly bridge replacement. Another example that I found during my review is that Lane County's bridge program failed in recent years to monitor the steel cathodic protection and prevention systems on its bridges. And this lapse in monitoring caused steel piling section loss to occur on 13 bridges, which will require costly repairs. I believe those are planned for either this summer or next summer. So in looking at both pavement preservation and bridge preservation, current funding falls short of what is needed. And again, due to the decline in end of federal secure rural school funding, total division expenditures and staffing levels have gone down. So this slide shows the division expenditures by fiscal year over the last 10 years. So you see it dipping down. And then for FTE over time, the division has lost about 40 FTE in the last 10 years. Also, capital improvement plan expenditures have also gone down. And these reductions have impacted the division's ability to keep up with needed preventive maintenance activities for both roads and bridges. Transportation agencies worldwide have found that cost-effectively keeping assets in good condition requires long-term asset management strategies linked with long-term financial plans. So I reviewed the division's planning efforts and prioritization efforts, and there are prioritization and planning efforts in place on a year-to-year basis, but I found that the county lacks a long-term asset management plan for roads and bridges, and also found that the county doesn't have a formal preservation management strategy. They do have a preservation management strategy, it's just not formalized. So I thought that would be important, and that was a best practice that I found in the research. A little bit more about a long-term asset management plan. Those plans can be used as a decision-making tool, and some best practices on developing these plans includes a stated preservation strategy, including performance targets, maintenance plans, and a financial plan for being able to implement the work. The asset management planning process can also engage stakeholders and also incorporate performance monitoring to continue to monitor the condition of roads and bridges and to report that on an annual basis would be a best practice. The division also no longer has a planner who could assist the division in long-term asset management planning efforts. The division used to have a planner, but this position was cut along with the other cuts that the division had. And last, for bridge management, I also found that Lane County's bridge management system is outdated and lacks best practice features such as tools for planning, prioritizing, and budgeting bridge maintenance and preservation projects. And so I've listed some best practice components of a bridge management system there. And then I will touch on the recommendations and then open up for questions. So the recommendations are to adopt formal preservation management strategies for both pavement and bridges, develop a formal multi-year asset management plan, identify revenue solutions if gaps in funding are found during the planning efforts, report annually on progress toward asset management plan implementation, consider adding back a planner position, and implement a new bridge management system. Thank you.
Excellent. Ms. Miller, I'm going to state this. When we first discussed the concept of a performance auditor, what you just delivered was exactly what we envisioned. That what you've given us is not good news, not bad news, but the news. And it's given Mr. Elsey and the department really a confirmation of what you already knew for the most part. But with that confirmation, it gives you the tools to move forward with the 6 bullet points that Ms. Miller is outlining here in the recommendations. And it really is 6 bullet points of action that you can't tell us you need, you can't tell us that it's something you want to do or you speculate you need to do. It's been confirmed through a formal audit process. And I'd like to mention also that during the performance evaluation presentation, the committee presentation, Mr. Elsey, Ms. Miller once again pointed out the cooperation, not just cooperation, but the facilitation that occurred during this during the audit, that your staff went out of their way to make the audit go as smoothly as possible to give us this kind of a result, a working document that we can all read and understand. Very well done, outstandingly well done. And point out that Mr. Schumacher was there, and we had an opportunity during that process to not compliment but to acknowledge the fact that the department is doing far more than can be expected with the resources that they have. And I recollected that Commissioner Lyken and I spent an afternoon with Mr. Schumacher in the lab a couple of years ago. And it wasn't Chemistry 101, it was Chemistry 458 that we were going through in the lab that day, and just finding ways to extend the resources that we have to maintain the roads, to maintain those year miles that you discussed, and the metric that was involved that you put forward that made it easy for even, I'm not a bridge maintenance person by any stretch of the imagination, or a road maintenance person. I did build combat bridges when I was in the Army, but that's not the same thing. So well done. At this point, I'll let the board know we are on schedule to conclude our day's business prior to the lunch break. It may require that we go into the lunch break just a little bit to do that. So I'll open this up for discussion regarding the performance audit on bridges and roads.
Yeah, and if I may, Chair Farr, I'll invite Tim Elsey up in case there's any questions for him.
Thank you. And I was sorry, I was remiss in doing that. So to the board.
Just a very brief question. We talk about slurry seal and chip seal. I understand that. And then when you talk about thin asphalt overlay, is that a 2-inch lift? Or?
Anything less than a 2-inch lift.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then Commissioner Lyken next time. I'm hoping Commissioner Lyken talks about the issue of that we need $6.8 million a year for maintenance, and where on earth might we get that? Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first of all, I just want to say thank you very much. Really, really good. And again, it's data, it's information, and it's a good report. I think it allows us as board members to take a look. Okay, now we have our work to do, and so we have our assignments, and that is to lobby our partners as much as we possibly can for revenue, among other things. You know, one of the things I think is really interesting about Lane County is we have more county bridges than any other county in the state. Second in road miles. Only I think Malheur County is number 1, and we're right ahead of Clackamas County. And it's interesting, when I saw the chart on the as far as our maintenance is concerned, and I believe you had Lane County about 99% as far as conditions are concerned with regarding our roads. And I was looking at like Clackamas County, and they were clear down to 46%. And I thought, very good work from our staff, understanding that even though the revenues have shrunk, they're still able to continue to maintain. But I think on your last slide, what that does to me is that identifies, okay, we can celebrate the good work that's gone on here in the past and where we are right now, but now that shows what we need to do to continue to maintain that 99% into the future. And of course, we're in a sense beholden. State partners, federal partners. And while, you know, we can be cautiously optimistic about both, clearly between the Department of Transportation, I think in particular the Secretary of Ag has really come out aggressively and talked about the Forest Service needs to work in a completely different manner than what they've done in the past. That's where our revenue's coming from for road funds. And then, of course, we know what's going on in Salem. I have no idea at this point in time if it's going to pass or not. Hopefully, if they are feeling like it's close, we'll see a special session so we can get something passed. But there's the answer to your question, Chair Farr, in particular on Salem, is the revenue that we could potentially see coming in over the next 10 years that would help to develop the exact recommendations that you're putting forward. Without it, I think that staff is going to rely on what they've been relying on here in the past, and that is in the recent past, and that's technology, innovation, to really try to curb some of these issues without the revenue. And so hopefully we're going to see something that'll come to pass on both sides. But just looking at those 6 areas, the 6 recommendations, I think it gives not only the public works staff, but it gives us as the board, it really gives us an idea, okay, this is where we have to work with our staff. identify information and start working with our state and federal partners. How can we bring in that additional revenue to make sure that we can move those recommendations forward in a positive manner? This is why I think these audits work out so well, is that we get to see without guessing, but instead we get to see this is what came out. And I like it because there's no prejudice involved. It's just, here are the facts, ma'am. And that's it. Yes, I remember watching Dragnet as a kid. Those that are born before 1980, never mind. Anyway, so I really do appreciate this. This really gives us a good idea of what we need to do in the future to accomplish these very recommendations. So great work. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. No speculation involved. This is very, very clinical. Further discussion, Commissioner Sorensen.
I just want to say a couple of quick things. First of all, on the audit itself, thank you very much. I think this is an extremely valuable piece of work that's going to really be around for a while to be used by the Roads Advisory Committee, the board, the Budget Committee, the County Administrative Department in formulating some of the things that we might be able to do. So I just appreciate the hard work that went into bringing us this audit. But I think for us, the Board of Commissioners, once we get an audit like this, I think that we need to be talking about, well, what are the pros and cons of implementing some of the recommendations? So I guess I'd like to hear from Mr. Elsey, here are sort of the versions of the recommendation. I know there's a lot more detail in the report, but what can we do to implement the results of the audit?
Well, thank you very much. And first of all, I do want to reiterate the word that you use, which is valuable. This has been an incredibly valuable effort for us, and I so appreciate Ms. Miller and Ms. Bressie and the work that they did. I also want to say that I appreciate Orrin Schumacher and his team and the way that they responded to this effort. I also want to say that it allowed us to be able to understand that 99% of the roads that we maintain right now are in good or better condition. That's a great place to start from. 98% of the bridges that we maintain are in fair or better position. That's a good place to start from. However, this was not only valuable, it's a timely effort. And it's a timely effort because we're at a tipping point. And as you see, the monies that we had for Secure Rural School were spent very wisely and very well by our predecessors. We no longer have those monies, so now we're going to have to implement better strategies, even though we've cut quite a bit. We've cut our maintenance funding by about 40% and our FTEs by about 30% in the last several years. So we've cut as much as we can, so now we have to get better at what we're doing. The recommendations by Ms. Miller were very good, and I did provide a response to her audit, and in the response, I accepted every one of her recommendations, and then I gave a timeline for when we would want to implement those. And first of all, to develop and adopt a formal road and bridge preservation management strategies, we have a target date of June 2019 for that, and that might be dependent on whether or not we can afford a planner position. Incorporate expected road service life gained per year versus road miles maintained into our yearly review of road and bridge maintenance and preservation activities. That's a new metric, as Commissioner Farr pointed out. That's an exciting metric for us so that we can tell the administrator and the board every year where we are in terms of maintaining our assets. Third, develop a formal multi-year asset management plan, which incorporates a capital improvement plan. This will include the adopted road and bridge preservation management strategies and performance targets, and that target date is June 2019. Road and bridge and storm sewer infrastructure maintenance plans, including planned pavement and treatment miles per year and planned bridge maintenance projects. Target date annually. We will be able to report that to you annually, what we're going to be doing. Also, to identify annual funding needs and budget allocations. Target date for that will be January 2018 for the project phase and 2019 for the implementation phase. And then after that, we'll be able to report that annually to this board. And then the current road and bridge condition ratings and the number of bridges with weight or other functional limitations, the target date on that is annually. We will report that to you annually. We will also work with Technology Services to identify the most cost-effective solution for implementing road and bridge asset management software. We have a target date of that to begin immediately with the implementation of June 2019. Determine the current workload and expertise of existing staff and determine whether asset maintenance planning can be accomplished with the current staff or if a planner will be needed. We have a target date of that of September of this year. And then finally, report annually on progress towards the implementation of the multi-year asset management plan, including progress towards planned activities, goals, performance targets, identified funding shortfalls. The asset management plan will include projects and priorities for the items in this report and for items not included in the scope of this report, 3 of which I've identified below, and I do want to touch on those quickly. There were some items that were not included in this report and were not intended to be included in the report. So that will include, first of all, the Department of Transportation currently is identifying critical routes in case of a catastrophic earthquake. On those critical routes, we are also identifying seismically vulnerable structures or bridges. So that will have to move into our maintenance and management plan as well as we prioritize our work for the future. Also, we did not include any work on the MS4, or the Municipal Separated Storm Sewer System. And that is generally in the urban growth boundaries, but we do have some MS4s that are located outside of the urban growth boundaries, but in the urban areas. And we did not touch on priorities needed for that and how we will ensure that we maintain those going into the future. In addition to that, we have new requirements coming down for the NPDES, or National Pollution Prevention Discharge Elimination System permit. And as those come down, we'll have to prioritize the new requirements for maintaining the storm sewer system. And finally, this did not address and could not address the safety issues that we face in the county at this time. Every member of the board has heard the statistics, and they're sobering. We have, in 2014, 2015, we had the highest number of fatalities in the state of Oregon. The leading cause of death from ages 1 to 24 from the years 2009 to 2014 were traffic fatalities. We are currently working on a traffic safety action plan, and that's being led by Becky Taylor and David Reeser. And we will be forming implementation strategies that will help us save lives in the future, but that will be something that we will have to prioritize into our budget as well.
Thank you, Mr. Elsey, and I'll point out that your response begins on page 29 of the audit report on this document right here, which can be found on the county's website. And thanks for pointing out those 3 areas that this audit by design did not cover, but it's nonetheless 3 areas that we do need to address, and will be wrapped into the 6 bullet points that are outlined up above in terms of how do we address safety, how do we address pollution, and how do we address, what was the first one? It was,
the Cascadia.
The evacuation routes, or the safety routes. So a great audit, and you pointed out that that Ms. Miller worked closely with staff to make this happen. You have 6 bullet points here, and my question for you was, did any of this come as a surprise to you?
You know, the biggest surprise that we had out of it was the metric that she provided for us to be able to quickly and easily tell the board whether or not we're keeping up with the maintenance of our roads and bridges. But besides that, I think she gave us clarity rather than giving us new information.
And that is brilliant. That metric is, it's easy to, just one quick question. Well, how are we doing on the metric this year, Mr. Elsey? Well, we're at 78%. That's a pretty easy number to report. So very good. Further discussion regarding the audit? Excellent job. We have something not to work with for 45 minutes this morning, but to work with for years to come. Thank you very much, Ms. Miller.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Smoker-Heisky, for commissioning this and for bringing this forward to us. As we move through the balance of our agenda, we'll move into item 11, Commissioner's Business. Any announcements from the board? I see none at this point in time. We incorporated our announcements as we went along. I was going to say something about housing, but I think we did that. Mr. Smoker-Heisky.
Just wanted, Mr. Chair, to ask the commissioners if you would stop by and see Deanie after the meeting here to sign the proclamation. If you haven't signed the card, to sign the card and sign the proclamation for Dave Hauser.
Thank you for that, Ms.
Yes,
McRae.
both of those proclamations.
And Commissioner Sorensen had a couple of questions regarding that, so Deanie has that. Item 11B, agenda team requests. Any work session requests out of today's meeting? I see none. Then Mr. Mokryski, review assignments.
Well, of course, we had the two emergency business items this morning. I didn't have any other assignments in terms of reports back. Did I miss anything?
No, I'll get the 42 CFR from Mr. Kyler, which is in process already. Okay, then moving right along to our executive session. We have need for a very long executive session. No, wait, I'm kidding. We have no executive session today, which leads us to the item 14, any other business before the board on July 20th? Seeing none, we're adjourned.